Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Sunday Night Fights. We are live. Got a couple games going on so far. But let me do some social stuff first. I'm gonna put out a message in the Discord.
All right.
David, you can reconnect with the chat.
I already Twittered. Hey, chat. I'm back. Why did half of you leave? I was only gone for 5 seconds. You're so impatient. Icy, good to have you with us now. Welcome to the fights. Thanks for the raid. Sorry that the number of players per game is reduced from 4 to 2 here, but there's already 2 games going, so in a sense, there's 4 players playing chess at the moment. What's going on with Jesse? I don't know. I took his spot. He seemed superfluous to the show.
Jesse's out. He's done. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. Jesse's out of town. He talks about it every Sunday. He's looking for a new place to live.
Mm-hmm.
He's house hunting right now.
Yeah. Good luck, Hunter.
But I'm sure he's going to watch the show replay, guys, so please keep that in mind with all of your chat messages. Just know whatever you write, Jesse will be reading it sometime later.
He's going to rewatch 3 hours of chat.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we got 2 games so far. One, actually, I think they're both from our round robins, but we also opened up the ladder tournament just yesterday. So those games are also going to be featured on Sunday Night Fights if they are played during the stream. And actually, I want to add something to Moobot real quick because people often ask how to get on Sunday Night Fights, and that can be hard to explain when the ladder tournament isn't ongoing, but it is ongoing, so now it's much easier to explain.
All right. So, do you mind if I run away for 2 minutes and come back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that work for you? All right. Just going to take a bathroom break, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to get some music going. And you know what? We can't just keep reusing this info command. So we're going to make a new command for Sunday Night Fights. Guys, help me describe Sunday Night Fights. What would be a good... I'm just going to crowdsource this. How do you explain... What is Sunday Night Fights? Just someone write a little... Like, if someone comes in here this the first time they're watching the show, they hit exclam, SNF, they hit enter. What should they read? Because people want to know not just what the show is, but like also how to get on the show. They want to know like how to get their game featured. So that has to be included as well. So how do we write this? Yeah, thanks. Someone explain to FIDE Trainer Net what is Sunday Night Fights.
I thought you you're the one most qualified to tell him that, Kostya.
I'm just, sometimes I have a hard time with words. They just don't, they don't come out.
I tried to explain it during my last show, you know, with the disclaimer that I didn't actually know. But I said that, you know, people are playing classical games either in a round robin or in the ladder, to classical chess competitions organized through the ChessDojo Discord. And then we watch those games live and comment them. And it's sort of a place for classical chess viewing. Players of all rating levels, right?
That sounds pretty good. Okay. Michelangelo, not bad. This is good copywriting.
Well, Mitch's game is over.
Oh, is Mitch even playing?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know Mitch was
Played
playing.
the Mac Daddy Mac. The miggity Mac.
Wait, I think that was last week's game.
That's not a current game?
Mm-mm. That happened last week.
Oh. Alright, I was bad at finding the links then. You told me to the game.
Oh.
That was in...
Well, I can post them in the Twitch chat. Here's one.
Sorry to bring that back up then, Mitch. My bad. I'm just poorly following links.
And here's two.
Alright.
Okay.
All right, I see both of them now, I guess. We've got one of those Alapins where white tries to grab the pawn on c5 and hold on to it. And then we've got a sort of King's Indian.
Oh, we got a King's Indian. Cool.
Nice.
Okay, so I think this Bubba Tough game might even just be a training game. I'm not even sure if it's part of one of the round robins or not. The game between Cartier Tank and Adande, yeah, that's I think one of the Squire games. By the way, Cartier Tank is
It's formerly Rosewood.
formerly Rosewood, exactly. We already covered this probably.
Someone who sacked a bishop on h7 against us in a tandem simul and almost took us down.
That's right. That is correct. And Bubba Tough, so Bubba is a pretty strong player. He's like 2100, 2200. Very good expert of the French defense. And definitely has his own kind of understanding of the game.
So this 1100 of his in like chess.com rapid ratings is completely not real.
Yeah, I think he just doesn't play at all or something. Like this game that he's playing now might be like unrated too, or not really sure. And it seems like his opponent made a fresh account just for ChessDojo. This is not a player that existed a few months ago. But I believe they are around 2200 strength as well. So this is going to be a high-level game. Actually, looking forward to this one. King's Indian.
All right, Kostya, tell us again the point of bishop g5 against the King's Indian, period.
Period.
Yeah. Across any different other set of positions, you know, bishop on e2, bishop on d3, whatever. Why would white ever put their bishop on g5?
Well, bishop on g5 can be very annoying for black in general because it pins the knight, and And black usually wants to move the knight to get their typical kingside play going with f5.
Okay.
So by putting the bishop on g5, you force black to make some kind of concession, either moving the queen to e8, where it might not be as well placed, playing like h6, weakening the kingside, or I think those are basically the main ways of dealing with the bishop. I don't know, queen d7 can be a move sometimes, yeah.
And if I play h6, bishop h4, I still might have to play g5.
From black's point of view?
f5 is pretty weak, right, if I'm black?
Yeah, I think black doesn't want to go g5 in many cases, because it just weakens the f5 square, and then we can no longer take back with the pawn. Though in some positions on h6, white just pulls the bishop back to e3 just to get the tempo later with like queen d2. So white doesn't always want to play bishop h4. The difference here, though, is that the bishop already has an escape hatch to f2, whereas if the pawn was still on f2, then black could play like g5, knight h5, and take the two bishops, which would be kind of double-edged.
Okay. So I feel normally I would react to this with queen e8, knight from f6 to d7, and then f5. Comment. Good or bad?
Queen e8, knight d7, and then f5?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty reasonable. This is pretty typical, like, transformation. The knight on d7 can go to c5, the knight on a6 can go to b4 in some cases, and you can play c6, and I think it's reasonable. Knight can also go to like h7 as a possibility, but d7 makes sense to play on the queen side.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is eyelash, if you guys know. From
Well, then I'm prepared for my next
Discord.
game. Thank you.
Are you going to try this line out?
I mean, the next time someone plays bishop g5 against me, I'll play like that.
Well, this was an interesting line. Bishop d3, knight e2.
Seems like a line where white could really fight black over the f5 square. Like white could play g4 in some cases, white could play knight g3 in some cases. So I'd have to be very careful about when and how I play f5, I think.
Yeah, well, it's a weird samish with bishop on d3, knight on e2. Okay, black played c6, so no h6. And Bubba's thinking. So this is interesting because I've only seen games where Bubba plays black, and my impression of him is that he's like a very good like counter attacker, counter puncher. Like plays this winnower, like gets this counterplay. But here he's got the space advantage. He's the one who, as white, has to kind of like show an active plan. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles this situation. My feeling is queen d2 is the most natural move here by far.
Yeah. Also castling.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, queen 2 looks like it's best.
So this is Bubba's usual stuff, the Sarawon system. Yeah, I think it is called this. He likes it, huh? Close positions.
That's definitely the most common reason for someone to be a French player is that they like close positions.
Yasser keeps saying, you see, the bishop is always better on d3.
Yeah, it's pretty good on d3.
I mean, not in every position. Sometimes it gets hit with like 95 and stuff. Hey, Finity. So if you want to get your game featured on stream, you got a ladder game. You just got to post the link in Discord in the ladder channel and usually watch it. So I'll pick it up. Oh, there you go. I see it. Yeah, you're all set. But don't watch the stream while you're playing because that's distracting. And also we're going to be talking about the position. David, that one is the latest in the ladder channel, if you can get to it. It's just the most recent link.
Oh, at 3:15 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I have it.
Oh, cool.
You wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you believe it? I have it.
Nice.
God, but every time I reload my live chess, it brings up Mac Daddy Mac against Mitch.
You got X out of the game.
Massacre.
You got X out of it.
What a massacre. Poor Mitch. I'm just messing with him. All right. Which game do you want to look at now?
Well, let's go to the second game we had, Cartier Tank against Adande. I mean, this one in the King's Indian is still in the opening, so it's still kind of developing. We'll get back to it, I'm sure. A lot of possibilities there. So this one looks like it was an Alapin.
Yep.
C3 Sicilian. We got D5, takes, D4. G4. D takes C5. Takes, E6. And white tries to hold on to the pawn. So what do you think, David? Should this really... Can this be good for white?
Yeah. It can be.
Can be.
I'll say this. I don't especially like... I don't like to play this way as white. I don't like to hold on to a pawn and wander around with my king with bad development.
Mm-hmm.
But when I play black, for whatever reason, I have trouble with these positions here. I do not smack white like they should get smacked. So I've gradually accepted that this position might be pretty good for white.
Yeah, it can be playable, and then if the counterplay runs out, then it runs out. You know what to do. Scott Post says they played an RR game this afternoon, round robin game. Was doing okay, but then a losing blunder on a move they spent 1 second on, pushing a pawn in a queening race. Drawing was taking a moment to move your king out of check. Right. But the main question is, how much time did you have at that moment? Because if it was just down to a bullet game, then yeah, what can you do? But if you had a lot of time on your clock, then yeah, that's on you to have found that one.
Yeah.
So going back to this game, white played king e1, knight d5. Should be to knight f4. Definitely looks active for black. Knight c4. Bishop e7, b5. Takes, knight b8, and this is the position we've got.
Yeah, it's pretty controversial.
Yeah, I mean, first glance makes it feel like black has definitely achieved quite a bit in the position. And now the c5 pawn is just kind of hanging, and white may or may not have something to do about that.
Yeah, I think white's going to lose that pawn back.
Bigger problem for white is, like, I don't even see how to get his pieces out.
The bishop on f1 is looking pretty sorry at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, rook g1 looks logical. I think the bishop's going to sit on f1, so at least we should bring out the rooks.
Yeah. No, white couldn't castle because they had already moved the king. Oh, we got 95. Okay. Vishnu's move. 1 point for Vishnu. He's saying c6 next.
Yeah.
feels like white is so underdeveloped that, like, I find it hard to believe.
Well, white's not sufficiently underdeveloped for us to go just bonkers with sacrifices as black here. I don't think.
Maybe not.
I've looked at rook d5 and bishop c5 here, and I'm not really happy with either of them. So, like rook d5, knight f7, rook f8, knight d6, check. I have to spend my time recapturing. I don't really see anything for black in that position with the knight on b8. And similarly, bishop c5, knight f7. I just don't quite see that either.
Let's say we go rook f8.
Yeah, that seems to be what we have to play.
Yeah. Let's say c6.
Mm-hmm. Pawn takes c6.
Okay. You take the pawn.
White recaptures with the knight, right?
I think with pawn.
Oh, with pawn? Okay. So then, no. Pawn f6.
Right. Okay, let's stick with the knight.
Okay.
It seems kind of annoying.
Yeah. So I'll trade the b8 knight.
Yeah.
And then play king c7.
Yeah.
Looks like black's better.
Yeah, I mean, right. I don't know what white's doing. We got bishop c5 coming, and yeah. Okay, we got rook f8 on the board. Adande agrees.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Sharkama. Yeah, sometimes we look at earlier games. If there's a lull in the action, we might go through something. But for now, we got 3 live games and one that we haven't looked at yet, which has an interesting opening. Yeah, this knight on f4 is really strong. It's also annoying that white moved the king already, so he has no hopes of like castling and just like getting his rooks in. Could try like rook g1 here, but I was thinking if we just go like g6 or bishop f6, kind of feels very much okay for black. So yeah, I think white has some issues here with the structure. Has to figure it out. All right, shall we move on to the third game?
Yeah.
Okay, we got Finity versus Mr. Waffle Truck. That was C3 Sicilian we just saw, Foos Chess. And this looks like kind of a Sushnikov, but I don't think that's what it was at all. It started with D4,
Mm-hmm.
E6. You get the Dutch. And a quick D5.
Really wanting to crack black's structure, but probably better to bring out some more pieces first. This is a thematic move for white to play positionally.
Yeah. It says a lot about the Dutch that even this, I'm like, yeah, I'd still take white.
Yeah, the position does not yet look good for black, for sure. White hasn't wasted a move. This is a move you play, right?
Yeah.
I mean, normally you just bring out more pieces first and then play this move, but it doesn't look like black can do anything to keep white from following up with knight c3 and whatever else they want to play.
Right. I mean,
But
there must be some drawbacks. Otherwise, we would see
yeah,
this.
I think maybe if you wanted to get a little bit of a drawback, you could play bishop to b4 check here.
Mm-hmm.
Getting that bishop outside the pawn chain, and then depending on how white responds.
Or even just knight f6 first, waiting for knight c3, and then playing.
Well, knight
bishop
f6.
e4.
What are you going to do on d6?
d6.
Maybe
Probably
you
just
play d6 yourself, and then capture it with the bishop. Maybe there's no problem.
maybe check. Although I don't even know how bad that endgame is for black. To be honest, it might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I suppose we could just play knight f6 and ignore everything. Yeah.
So. Okay, but yeah, I think most players here usually are developing knight c3 first, or I personally like Fianchetto's system with g3, bishop g2, and then choosing where to put your knights, maybe c3 and f3, or c3 h3 sometimes, and going from there.
I sort of like the opportunity to bring the bishop out to b4 because I might play e5 as black.
Yeah.
And then, knight f6, d6 and stuff. And I put the question to white very early on by playing bishop b4 check. Do they want to play knight c3 and maybe get doubled pawns at some point, or do they want to play bishop d2 and trade bishops? I'd like to know that. It'll help inform my decision of whether to play e5 or leave the pawn on e6 for tension, or maybe even take on d5 in some case.
Yeah, actually, I see your point. Like on bishop b4, bishop d2, I could just like take and go e5 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Just get a really very good position.
Yeah.
Okay, so black ended up going d6, which kind of makes sense, but probably wouldn't be my first choice because it just closes off all these bishop b4 ideas, which I think might be useful. And then queen c2. This is puzzling.
There's something white doesn't like about knight c3 because they eventually play it, but they were messing with the move order, feeling like there was something they didn't like about playing knight c3.
Yeah, they ended up playing it. And like in this position, the queen looks fine on c2. It's just very strange to play it this early.
Yeah, they must have been looking at some variations around like the f5 pawn and the e6 pawn or something. Maybe they're trying like some special finesse.
Yeah. But black goes e5, and now we get kind of King's Indian actually. G6, e4, knight a6. But it feels like it was worked out for black because they were able to play f5 so quickly. And they've saved a lot of time compared to normal King's Indians, right? Where this knight has to move somewhere.
I mean, if we compare this exact position to the King's Indian, it must compare favorably.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say the white's position isn't okay still, maybe, but compared to the King's Indian, black has done better.
Yeah, I think black is doing really well.
He's gained one tempo though, not two.
Two, no, because the knight has to go to d7 and then come back if you want to.
But he played e6, e5 in 2 moves.
Oh, that's true. He did waste a move on e6 and e5.
So he's one tempo up compared to what would be a very standard King's Indian position, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
Not the beginning or end of the world. Like King's Indians can be sharp, but they're also locked positions. I don't know that in like the early phases a tempo is that premium. I mean, in e takes d4 lines, obviously, but in lines where white plays d4, d5, I don't think,
Well, it seems like all this talk about tempos might prove irrelevant. So bishop e3, fe4 was played, bishop g2, and then knight b4 looks like a good move. We have knight d3 check.
Oh my gosh, it almost was a very good move. I see why he went for it.
But white has queen a4.
Yeah.
And the knight is lost. Poor Mr. Waffle Truck. What can you say about this, David? Do you think black was just playing too quickly?
Let's see. He spent a minute on fe4. He spent 16 seconds on knight b4. If it were a blitz game, I would say he's really using his time. But this is classical chess, right, tonight? Classical chess. He's got 44 minutes on his clock. And knight b4 is almost like a decisive mistakes. So yeah, too fast.
Well, I think players that are new to the ladder, they got to get used to it. And we see it a lot on Sunday Night Fights. The first time, they often end up playing it like a blitz game. Like if they're not used to just playing like a full, like 45-minute, 90-minute game. And because this was just 45 plus 30, this isn't even a full classical. But
right.
Yeah, chess is
But
a
you may
tough
have
game.
some players who basically came into chess through internet chess and have never played a game this slow before.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is cool, actually, that like ChessDojo is actually introducing people to like classical chess for the first time.
Yeah. Well, every time control takes an adjustment, you know, even going from like 3 minutes to 3 minutes and 2 seconds, or from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, or, you know, people who aren't really experienced in classical chess may laugh at it, but the difference between a 2-hour time control and a 90-minute time control is like huge, like completely disorienting to classical players. So,
I think you have to adjust a little bit. Yeah, 90 minutes can feel really fast if you're used to 2 hours. I think at this point I'm used to 90 minutes for 40 moves.
yeah,
So,
you may be used to it now. My point is just that like everything requires adjustment, and somebody who's not used to it may think like, whatever, 90 minutes, 2 hours, either way, you're just sitting there forever at the board. What are you doing? You've got so much time, right? But really, I mean, like every decision that you make is partly a decision of when to make the decision, right? On every move you play, you're making 2 decisions: what move to play and when to play that move.
right.
And the when to play that move is often like a very subconscious process, simply calibrated based on playing tons of games at that time control that tells you when to, you know, okay, now this move, like I'm confident enough to play it now, versus, you know, thinking another minute about it. So yeah, I think it's really tough to adjust anything with time controls.
Hey, Caden, congrats. I thought you were already NM because of your username is NM Yang. So I'm confused. But yeah. Shut up. Unbelievable. Well, Waffle Truck is fighting back, but it's going to be an uphill battle. Definitely, the game is not over. We've certainly seen turnarounds, and I mean, White is spending a little bit of time, but not all that much. So it's not inconceivable that White can blunder and let Black into the game. So we'll keep an eye on this one. Let's see. Do you want to jump back to the King's Indian game?
Yeah.
All right, since we last left off. So yeah, this is an example of players, I think, spending like a normal amount of time. Up until this point, basically not much time was spent from either player. They're kind of playing out the opening. Here, White spent a good 5 minutes on f3, knight a6, bishop g5, c6, like, okay, very thematic. And now White spent 7 minutes on queen d2, and Black spent like 13 minutes here on knight b4. So now the game has started.
Yeah. Yeah, the players are really into it. I think it was FIDE TrainerNet who pointed out an important little tactic to know for this structure. Is that if Black plays h6, and White takes the pawn, Black may have the move knight takes e4 in a lot of positions.
Yeah.
Right. So that's an important thing to know. Here with the pawn on c6, it depends on various details, right? Because when White plays knight takes e4, they might be able to trade queens on h6 and win a pawn on d6, but now their bishop on d3 would be hanging. So all those capture kind of tactics, which I think are the most important in chess, all those tactics like change every move based on where some pieces are, because they don't follow normal strategy, right? They're just like all kinds of desperado moves. Pieces can go wherever they want, and it's just a matter of, you know, crunching through the moves.
Counting,
and so I think I think it may work or not work from one move to another, but it's something that you need to be aware of. This like that there is this h6 move sometimes, even with the white queen on d2.
Yeah, definitely a very thematic trick. We got another game, David, by the way. It was just posted in the round robin general chat. I'll put it in Twitch as well. And hey, John, how's it going?
Oh, I just wasn't scrolled down far enough. That's why.
Gotta see the
I was at like the latest new message, which was Mitch's game, which he played against Mac Daddy Mac, in which he lost. But that's why I kept seeing that. Oops. All right. Let me scroll down. So.
And yeah, we got another game. Just started from the round robin. We'll take a look at that one soon. We'll let their opening maybe play out a little bit. So Black's last move, knight b4, is controversial. I mean, it gets this tempo on the bishop. I don't think White wants to give this one up. So bishop b1 would be my first instinct here. And then I'm curious what Black has in mind against like the knight getting kicked with a3, because it seems like that's just going to happen.
Yeah. Knight c5 did look like a more natural place to put the knight. That it would give White the comfortable move bishop c2 if Coast is right that White wants to keep the bishop. So
yeah,
perhaps that's sort of like piece of the question there.
Knight c5 looks really natural, and then you have ideas like bishop d7, rook c8, taking on d5, trying to go b5, getting queenside play. But it can be double-edged. These positions can be really tricky because sometimes White just like castles kingside. Because so far everything that White has done, it almost suggests he wants to castle queenside. And I think he would in some cases, but here he can just go kingside, and now that the queenside is already kind of opened up, just say like, okay, thank you very much. Now I'll castle kingside. Go ahead, you can try to create your attack, but I'm already way ahead on the queenside in terms of creating play. So this can backfire for Black if when White kind of switches directions.
Mm-hmm. Vishnu's convinced that he knows the insides of Bubba's mind well enough to know that he will always castle kingside.
In any position?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, knowing the proclivities of your opponent can certainly inform your play. Yeah, I caught that earlier, Vishnu. That's why I believe your assessment.
So yeah, that's the thing that Black has to keep in mind sometimes, because it feels like, again, White wants to castle queenside, because in the sandwich this is always an idea, queen d2, bishop g5, it kind of like everything is supporting queenside castling. But yeah, if you do too much on the queenside, then White goes kingside, and then it's like, yep, thanks for opening the queenside. Good luck with your kingside attack. Now that I'm playing like dc6 and everything is opening up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How does Bubba rate only 1177? Well, everyone's had a tough time during the quarantine. You know, even 21, 2200s can have a bad streak. Or not everyone plays on chess.com. Classical time controls. I mean, it's not even called classical. It's called chess.com rapid, which is very confusing.
Right. Called rapid. They didn't intend for anyone to play classical chess, truly.
Yeah, in their defense, very, very few people do. All right, let's bounce back to the Alapin endgame. We had rook f8, and then after a very long think, bishop c1 played. Okay, so I respect the think. At least White spent a lot of time. That shows like he understands his position is not easy, and he was at least trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah. Oh, and he came up with a good move too.
Yeah, it looks very interesting, right? Just challenging the most annoying piece in the position, knight on f4.
Yeah, it's a great move. It also has the idea of, in some cases, playing bishop e3.
Right.
Therefore, the most likely move for black might be knight d5.
Yeah.
Hitting the c pawn. And then, I mean, knight d5 would be bad if white could respond with c4. And c4 were good. But c4, knight b4, at first glance, I think it's going to work out for black, tactically.
Yeah. Looks
Is
pretty
that
good.
really obvious, Kostya?
No, it just looks good. Not,
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So then I think black can just play knight g5 pretty confidently here if c4 is not going to be a good move for white.
Right. Yeah, it feels like this should be the move, and then if bishop d2, we just take on c5. We got our pawn back, white structure is really weak, and the king is still in an unpleasant spot on e1. So, might just be good for black, regardless.
But they are taking their time. That's what makes them such professionals.
Yeah.
What other candidates would there be other than knight d5?
I mean, basically like g5 and knight g6, but nothing really sticks out to me.
Okay. So he'll pretty much have to play knight d5 eventually.
Wait, is there another game going on, Vishnu? I don't have the Joel game versus ChessDojo.
Yeah, Counter Sparks. The last move was bishop c1 from white, challenging that knight on f4, which has been called such things as annoying by Vishnu.
Oh, PogChamps is ongoing. Oh, David, yeah, I remember, speaking of we were talking about postponing or replaying the match, right? PogChamps had its own controversy. I don't know if you heard about it, where like XQC overslept and missed his match. And I think his opponent graciously agreed to just reschedule for today.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, like, you know, rules-wise, you could call that a forfeit if somebody doesn't make it to the board. I think that could be, like, reasonable. It's definitely on them. But if the opponent is fine with some other solution, why not just go with something that both players are fine with?
I agree. But I just think it's funny that, like, you know, a country's, like, internet went out and, like, people are, like, dissing them. And, like, you know, they don't deserve anything. And
somebody else overslept. I'm sure he got 10
overslept.
million hate posts in his feed too, right?
I hope so. Oh, it was Jesse who posted the link. Thanks, Jesse. Okay, so there's the latest link. David, we got a 5th game. This one's from
XQC is a true professional, sleeping through his match, and Hafu just wants to play, which was one of my arguments earlier today in our talk show. Was like, I think a lot of chess players just want to play. So if you gave these decisions to chess players, I think on their own, they could often sort things out in a pretty reasonable way where they would get to you know, play out the games instead of forfeiting each other.
Right. Okay, this latest game, so this is Rio Bikaja, that's Joel, Jesse's student, playing white against Trash Masteo. Trash has been in the dojo for a while. We saw him in the Blitz tournament.
Yeah, he beat the tar out of me yesterday, right? When I tried the King's Indian.
That's right. That was an interesting game.
It wasn't even that interesting, was it? I was just bald.
So we got a London here. I'm going to play through the opening. A pretty trendy line with early queen b6 and bishop f5, well-known trick. H6. Yeah, I like how black played this one.
I mean, that opening seems to have gone wrong for white there, right? I mean, first he played the London, then... No, I'm kidding. But If you're answering c4 with queen c2 to c1, that doesn't seem right, does it?
It doesn't seem right, but that is some theory. I don't know what
That is
like the
theory
current...
for white to let all that happen to him. If
Yeah,
I were playing this, I'd
there's a
be
lot of
like, I'm
games.
dreaming.
I know, it looks good, and Engine likes it for black too, but it does get weird because like if black isn't ready to meet like b3 or e4 in some positions, it can be annoying because kind of your structure like blows up. So it can go wrong very quickly, but I don't know. I don't play it from either side, so I can't say a whole lot.
Wow.
We got 95 on the board, and here white's thinking.
Yeah.
But DE5... Okay, DE5, I guess the idea would be on knight d7 to follow up with e4. Otherwise, I think this would be really risky for white.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so d5, knight d7, e4. It's classical. We can try out some moves, right? D takes e4.
Mm-hmm. Let's say knight e4.
Then what?
Let's say knight e4.
Knight e4, right?
Maybe.
You'd rather not play bishop e4 because you want your bishop on f3 to have a strong presence on that diagonal.
Yeah.
And you could be weak on light squares at some points. You'd rather play knight e4, but then you have to calculate the move knight takes e5.
Right.
Where it's vulnerable, but it's threatening knight d3, so it won't be there for long.
Threatening knight d3 and knight f3 check. Yeah, so I think this knight is safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then bishop e5, queen e5. No discoveries.
Jesse says knight g3.
Oh, knight g3. Okay, there's a discovery.
The queen has to go back and defend b7, right?
Mm-hmm. And probably Jesse wants takes and maybe bishop d5.
Mm-hmm.
But this is an extra pawn that's doubled, right?
Yeah, it's extra. It's not much, but it is extra.
Yeah, so I don't know what white thinks they have here, but it's not equal material.
No, it's pretty.
Yeah, I think
playable position.
Compensation. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it looks like black should be able to play like g6 and bishop g5 and king g7.
Right.
Doesn't look like black gets run over.
But yeah, comparing it to bishop takes d5, this white just kind of keeps the position stable.
Yeah.
And then keeps their ideas of e4 and b3. But I kind of feel like if black is able to just go b5 in this position, then I don't see why black would have any issues, because then they're ready to meet b3 always, and their bishop's outside the pawn chain. I think it's just like a totally fine position.
Mm-hmm. In the d takes e5 line, although Jesse's saying, you should take with the bishop in 1 second without thinking, but in the d takes e5 line, we could take on e4 with our bishop instead of our knight if we didn't want to sack the pawn. And then white takes back with their bishop. Black takes back on e4 with their bishop, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
And we play rook takes e4 in order to not sack our e5 pawn.
Mm-hmm.
And... well, I mean, we have like the wrong bishop and all that, but that could still be playable maybe, I guess. Black could just play b5 to not worry about the c pawn and to introduce b4 as an idea. And
yeah, I would think that black is better here with knight c5 coming.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. So back to bishop e5 in one second.
It's on the board after 10 minutes, so not that bad. I respect it. We always talk about how players make this kind of decision too quickly in most cases. So I respect him thinking for at least a little bit there on DE. Because there are a lot of London positions where D takes E5 is the move. Though I would say in those cases, from what I've seen, it's usually like kind of a different setup. White's bishop is on D3, queen can come out to like F3 and attack the king side, and then the point of DE5 is to kick the knight away from F6, and yeah, get this like king side play. And then some E4 breaks as well. But here, yeah, it doesn't seem to give white as much.
All right, from black's perspective, you can't really stop the move E4 unless you plunk your piece in there right now.
Yeah, it looks like E4 is coming. But I would think about just playing B5 here as black, and then on E4, just dropping back.
Mm-hmm. And then after bishop takes F6, bishop takes F6, E takes D5.
I like calculated this,
Mm-hmm.
and then I didn't see that the pawn was hanging. So yeah,
I didn't calculate it, but I was thinking the pawn would hang.
Okay, B5 on the board, but on E4, of course, black can also just take and trade pieces.
Yeah, the thing is, white can also play bishop F6 pre-E4. Bishop F6, E4. If you retreat your bishop, the pawn on D5. If you take on E4, the knight takes back, threatening knight F6, which really wins. I would expect the bishop on F6 to move. But then, you know, white could play knight G3 with a clear advantage.
Well, I think on 94, maybe we just take.
Okay. And then bishop E4, rook B8.
Bishop E4, rook B8.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose that's the best way to make it playable. Yeah, fair enough. I don't like the move B5 though. It was the first move I thought of.
Right, feels like maybe black could do something else in this time, right?
I mean, I was actually looking at 94 for black and thinking it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's interesting. So on takes, take with bishop?
Yeah.
Let's say takes. Yeah, why wouldn't black be fine here with queen d5 and f5 coming d5?
I mean, white would have to do some kind of challenge with f3, otherwise they're just kind of bottled up. And black can probably handle it, right? Like f3, queen d5, queen c2.
Mm-hmm.
Black could accept doubled isolated pawns by playing f5, or... Oh no, in that position, am I hanging e takes f3, winning a pawn? Yeah.
Right. But
So
I would also...
F3.
I would think that on f3, like even without queen d5, if we just take... I mean, is this center really so dangerous for us? Like, so many pieces traded off. Feels like white just has weaknesses.
Well, they could kind of squish you with e4, and I would say you have to have a way to get your pieces into the game to choose to play a position like that. So I think black's probably going to want to keep the tension with queen d5, and white's going to want to play rook f1 and queen c2 to fight for e4.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I would be surprised if black ends up having like major problems there, or as Jesse would say, major grief. I would think it should be playable for black.
Yeah, I think so too. Look in this game. So I have the Affinity versus Waffle Truck game up on the live board, and it's totally turned around.
Equal pieces.
Yeah, I'll go back a couple moves. White was doing well, had the extra rook, but ends up forgetting about his rook on h1, gives a lot of checks. Trades queens with an extra rook.
Yeah, forgetting that he has to sort of recapture, and then at the end he doesn't have time to save the rook. Seeing like queen trade and then save the rook, but
So Finity was doing well, but I think just played way too fast, way too confident, and yeah, now the position, of course, totally turned around.
that said, that position was really complicated when he went for queen e6, actually, Kostya, right?
Oh, before he went for queen e6?
Yeah, look at it, because if he saved the rook on h1, black had like queen d1.
Oh, black had some counterplay, right.
Like, let's say you play queen c7 check to not hang the queen on c8, and that's where she was coming from anyway, right?
Yeah.
So if he wants to win and gives some queen check to get his queen free, and then saves the rook with rook h1, I don't really see how else to save it. Then he's got to reckon with queen f1, king d2, possibly queen d3 there, and then, you know, possibly checkmate, depending where he put his queen and where he then puts his king. It's a lot to handle for white, actually.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I think the mistake probably came earlier, maybe at this moment here, when white played queen takes b5. Probably the queen should have just stayed on e2 to defend.
I can never see what move you're on, but I was thinking the same thing, queen b5.
Right.
Here the queen's covering the counterplay, so rook h2 would have been warranted there with the idea of rook f2.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, Kostya, I want to give black credit for having sacked a rook on e4 to increase the complexity here.
That was a cool idea for sure.
Rook c4, trying to break through that f-file, and then on b3, taking it with the rook, taking it with the bishop. I'm not sure immediately if queen e4, queen f1 is sound. Yeah, I'm sure it is. So it's actually a very, very high quality idea.
Wait, why is it sound? I go king d2?
Well, for one thing, you can play queen takes rook on a1, and then you haven't sacked anything as black, but the game's gotten more complicated.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. I don't have a mate with rook f2 because of knight e2, right? I don't even have an attack there.
Gotcha,
but if I just play queen a1, I've got the white king on the run, my rook's on an open file, I'm threatening queen a2 and maybe making a passed pawn that's really close to being annoying. And it could be hard for white to cover his king and deal with the queen side at the same time right there.
Yeah, right. Like we're still a piece up, but from black's point of view, they're no worse than they were before. So from that point of view, the sacrifice is sound. Yeah, and for another coach, we're saying rook h2 in this case would have been probably the move for white to keep a big advantage. But we're just saying black's idea was quite interesting. That
I really want to give black credit because, like, so one of my ideas is that even players who are like quote unquote really bad or something like that, and I'm not calling a 1500 really bad, but I'm thinking like, you know, people might say that for whoever's like a few hundred points below them, right? So some people think that really bad is 1200 and other people think it's 800 and other people think it's 400. But whatever level you think it's at, you know, people have some idea, oh, somebody who's like really bad. I'm thinking that almost everybody, like, they've got lots of mistakes they're making, but they already have like a couple good ideas that they're using, right? So I really want to like recognize and notice some of those like strong ideas that you can see in the game of anyone of any rating. And if black just played normally in this position before he went for rook c4, rook e4, you would think that in the normal course of things, black's not doing pretty well, right? They've been down a knight for nothing for a dozen moves.
Yeah.
Right? And when they played rook c4, they did exactly what Danya told me to do when I had a lesson with him. To like find some way to change the course of the game. Right? And actually it's a very creative way. It's not obvious that black has this idea. And you know that there are details like queen e4, queen f1 being sound for black. That's like well calculated as well. So black put some creativity and you know, detailed tactical work into coming up with this idea.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I mean, it shows the importance of perseverance, like sticking with the game, because players will often give up when they make a mistake, and I wouldn't really have blamed black if after knight b4, you know, he just kind of resigned or gave up the game, you know, whatever it is, because it is kind of sad feeling when you just hang a piece. But no, he kept fighting, and a lot of times when you fight, you do get rewarded. And so white here probably thought like he is completely winning, and he's right on that. But the issue is that the decision still came very, very quickly. And then when you play this fast, even if you're winning, at some point you're going to make mistakes. And I think that happens here with queen takes b5. It looks like we're just grabbing a pawn with check, but all of a sudden, once white takes this pawn, the queen doesn't have time to come back and defend the king. So another lesson for you guys out there, you got to spend your time. You know, I don't want to rag on these guys too much, but they have more time than what they started with, and that's a sign that they're not using their time. Like, it's a pretty clear indication when you have more time than what you started with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, let's jump to... Where should we go? How about Chaxis versus Herbie? I don't think we've seen these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse's not the one that wrote 2200 in the chat, guys. That was me. And all right, this game we had Scandi takes knight f6, d4, c6, Gambit City. White took. Didn't have to take. You can just let black take, but okay, takes the pawn. Knight f3, bishop g4. Black takes on f3, wins the pawn back, but white wins his extra pawn back. Rook b8, bishop f3, e5. Now the player has started to spend some time here. Castles, bishop c5, rook e1, and that's the live position.
Yeah. Well, black's got some good development for the pawn.
Yeah. But also his king is on e8, so he owes white some time as well.
Yeah, he owes castling. Then again, there's nothing wrong with castling.
I don't know. So let's talk about knight takes f3 before castles. So here, why would this be particularly good for black? I'm not sure.
I wouldn't. What?
There's just a question. Oh, never mind. All right, that's fine. E5, castles, bishop c5, rook e1.
Oh, you're earlier on.
Yeah. Someone was just asking about an earlier move. But yeah, in the live position after rook e1, I'm not sure if black has enough. It's hard to.
Oh, yeah.
say.
Sorry. The answer to why not? What about knight f3 is like white doesn't have time or a good place to move the bishop to. So black's in no hurry to take on f3. They can take it whenever they want to some extent. Meanwhile, the knight is also attacking c2, so there are some other opportunities for the knight. Like basically the knight is probably slightly better than the bishop right now. So that would be why no knight takes f3, I think.
Yeah, he's just in no hurry to give up the strong knight, and white can spend a tempo on c3 or something first.
Yeah, if white plays c3 or g3, g3 might threaten bishop g2 with a superior piece. Then you can take, and white's weaken the light squares there. If they play c3, they've taken a good square from their knight. So, yeah, I think you keep the tension here as black.
But it's still very playable. I would say this is very much in the range of like playability for black. Yeah, maybe not like a full pawn, but I don't think white has like huge chances here. Still has to find some accurate moves to kind of consolidate. The nice thing for white is that if he does kind of extinguish black's play, it will feel like he has two extra pawns on the queen side rather than, because he only has one extra pawn, but on the queen side he has two extra pawns, which are going to be very strong. And
if you get to an endgame, it's like more winning than an endgame where the pawn structure is more balanced.
Yeah.
In a middle game, black has a chance to use their strength in the center to generate compensation or counterplay, so it can be quite tricky to play.
So yeah, let me try to generate some magic for black. I'll go castles.
Okay. I don't even know if it's magic. I mean, it's just not that easy to play white. Knight to d2?
Sure, but why aren't you taking on e5? People want to know.
What? Because I don't want to.
What do you mean?
I'm already up a pawn. I'm behind in development. I'm not even at it.
That didn't stop you to play queen takes h5, queen takes e5 in our simul.
Well, there I wasn't yet up that many pawns, and they were.
It's the same thing. We were up like one pawn. No, I'm fine.
That game I wasn't behind in development. I had developed my pieces, and then it was time to start picking. If my knight and bishop were on good squares, I would take the pawn on e5.
Gotcha. All right.
Right now, I can't play bishop e3 without allowing rook takes b2. That's a major problem. I don't postpone my problems. I solve them right away. So my problem is I can't develop my queen side. I'm going to deal with that. I'm not going to look at anything else.
All right. Knight d2. Well, that's fine. I mean, chat was wondering. I don't care. I'm happy you didn't take my pawn.
Chat was wondering. Just forget about it, chat. Develop your pieces. The longer you wait to get your knight and bishop out, the harder it's going to be to ever do so.
Okay, I'll play rook e8.
Black can play a huge variety of moves against rook e5, by the way. Anyone thinking like bishop b6 is forced or anything, white's taken so many liberties, black could play any move on the board there. Rook to e8, you can't take the bishop. Queen b6, like maybe knight c2. Like, no, it's complicated.
For sure.
And basically, rook e5 is not a tempo because you're in less and less of a position to take the material you're attacking. Okay, so we play knight d2 for white. What did you do, Kostya?
Oh, rook e8.
Rook e8, yeah. Okay, I'll go knight b3, revealing my grand plan. I sweated for knight d2 to b3 for a moment there. Morphy's opponents were in the habit of losing in 15 moves to an A player. So I learned something from them, which was not to play like them.
I'll go e4.
E4?
Yeah.
So you're taking the liberty of not defending the bishop on c5, right? Oof. All right. Bishop e2. In terms of calculation ability, would Morphy have been a master? Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, I think I just take on b3 here.
Okay, I have to take with my a pawn. Mama said take towards the center. I'm going to take towards the center.
And like queen b6.
Okay, ouch.
You could have traded queens on the last move, I think.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was...
Okay, I'll trade queens.
So queen takes, rook bd8, ab3,
Yeah.
bishop b6.
Bishop where?
B6.
Why?
That's a good question. I needed this move earlier, but now I don't. So hold on. Maybe I just go like e3 or... Well, I don't know if I want e3 either. I don't know what move I make. h5, h6?
Yeah. Well, anyways, you're struggling now.
Yeah, you don't think black has enough, right?
White seems to have an edge. I think maybe you go knight d5.
Maybe
That
knight
might be a way to
d5.
keep poking.
Yeah,
It stops me from playing bishop e3. It has the idea of playing knight b4.
right.
But I mean, at some point you just evaluate, right? Or I mean, unless the goal is just to sort of show like what a sample game could
Yeah,
be like.
this is what we do with Jesse.
It's just not that easy for white.
Yeah, I agree. Right,
Struggling.
right. Yeah, that's what we do with Jesse. Like someone just picks a side and is like, okay, I'll take black here, and then
We just play something out. Sure.
Just make moves, see how it goes.
Yeah.
See if we. Can
Well, I
get
don't want to
some-
play for both sides then, but I think knight d5 might be.
Yeah, no, that looks good. I didn't see knight d5. I was thinking like h6, but I like knight d5 much more. Yeah, definitely not easy for white. I think there's a lot of scope for to go wrong here.
Yeah. I see many different things I can blunder into, I think.
Excuse me. Let's see here. Okay, got some updates in the King's Indian game. Bubba did castle kingside. And actually was willing to give up his light squared bishop. Huh.
So we're on the Bubba game. All right, so knight b4, he just left it there. Didn't worry about the light scored bishop. Trades happened. b4. Trying to fix a pawn on b5. I approve. A4, I'm surprised a little. Oh, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. Oh, no. But here's the thing. A takes b4.
Yeah, I think that really should have been considered very seriously, right? Like just opening the
I was
file.
thinking white would play like a3 and then b4 maybe, and when I saw b4 it just had a slightly weird feeling, and I think black had to take their chance to take on b4.
Right, so let's say queen b4.
Knight d5.
Tactics.
Yeah, it's black's only chance to like do something before it all goes haywire. Oh, sorry, not haywire. White's not going haywire on him. White's just going to lock him down and then win a pawn on the queen side and win.
Right.
So it's like the last chance to try and make things haywire instead of boring.
That's a nice one.
Boringly losing. So you take on b4. I think queen b4, knight d5 basically is bad for white. Just can't do it. So after a b4, white has to play some other move trying to get ready for that, right?
Yeah. By the way, here on queen d2, I think easiest for black is to just give queen b6 check, and then the knight is free to move wherever.
On queen d2?
Yeah,
On
so
move
we
10?
don't. Yeah, so we don't. No, on in that trick, queen b4, knight takes d5. If white goes back, queen d2, defending the bishop, then instead of like knight f6 or f6, black can just go queen b6 check and
Yeah.
solve their problems. That was
Yeah,
a nice
black
one.
kind of gets into the game.
But you felt it, like ab4, there's something like loose, right, in white's position after queen b4.
Yeah.
I
It's
think-
loose for a moment. And like on ab4, you can also play the move bishop b5 for white. But again, like you've got queen b6 check, like you
Yeah.
don't quite have it to capture the two b pawns at the moment. And like if you
Right.
take time to play moves like rook b1 or rook c1 or king h1 or something, like black's gonna make you like pay in some way for that b pawn, right?
Yeah. So
It's not just going to be yours. The easiest way to get it is to play bishop takes f6, bishop f6, queen b4. And then black plays bishop g5 and has some kind of a counterplay too, right?
yeah. No, bishop
yeah,
b5.
Ezra Zaev, it does lose a piece. That was my point, is like white can't play the moves queen b4 and bishop b5 that they want to. And while they're busy setting up for those moves, like Vishnu suggests rook fb1, right? That's like a classic example of moves. It's like, well, if I just play this first, then I'll be able to get it. But like, for sure, something's going to go wrong while we're trying to get it.
Yeah, it feels like white is not in time. If white had bishop e3 on the board and like rook fc1, rook ab1, then it's like, yeah, white's doing great. But here it's like, does feel like white is a little bit just exposed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, b4 is a clear mistake, I think. Instinctively and based on my first calculations here. And then also just compare it to the move a3, right? Like if you go back a second and play a3 for white.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how's black going to prevent white from fixing the weakness on b5, right? If black stops us from playing b4 by playing a4, well, we don't care. You just fix the weakness on b5 as well, right? We'll play king h1, queen b4, knight c3.
I don't really understand if a3 is even needed at all. Like, what is black threatening? Like, to play b4 and then give up more squares? Like, I would just go rook fc1 most likely here, or rook ac1.
Developing a rook to an open file can be even better than fixing a weakness. Yeah.
But because there's no rush.
The weakness.
Yeah, but a3 is fine too. I just think on, like, if we think about typical King's Indian positions, which is now, this is becoming, like, white is playing on the queen side, black is supposed to play on the king side. White feels way ahead here. We got the open c file. It's as if we already played c4, c5, c takes d6, and black hasn't even moved the knight to play f5 yet. So it's like, yeah, can you imagine in the Mar del Plata?
I guess I was just trying to establish, or sort of like transpose to an established structure. You know, over the last couple days, I'd been looking at this Fischer-Cariz game in the Ruy Lopez, and early on in the game, Fischer could have played d5 with a black bishop on b7, and then black couldn't stop the follow-up of a3, b4. And that's just sort of like, I mean, I'm like one of the world's worst Ruy Lopez players, and that's just a known thing that black is like busted in those positions.
Right.
Because white has the space to attack the b5 pawn, black doesn't have the space to attack the b4 pawn. Black gets all tangled up and then loses. Like, it's not just like an edge, it's like really, really bad.
No, I think I understand what you're saying, and that's what Bubba was going for. Like with b4, now he might get it since black has played a4. But basically it's just some kind of grip, right? Where you play a3, put your knight on c3, you hit b5, you put your queen on e2, and then, yeah, black just is not going to be able to hold the queen side here.
Yeah.
Knight c3
and then
on
they'll
the board.
They'll also tend to lose the fight for the a file during that whole thing, right? And then you also have like rook a5.
But I'm not totally convinced that this is actually good for white, the game position after knight, because I'm thinking if black is able... Okay, I'll give an if. If black is able to hold on to b5, then the counterplay does come eventually on the f-file, and so there could be some chances. So maybe I would try bishop d7 in this position. I don't know, maybe king h1 or bishop e3. We'll go rook b8 next.
I approve of king h1. I think the bishop on g5 is still annoying black a little bit. So I'd approve of like king h1 and rook c1 and rook c2 and all that business, queen e2, any of those moves you want for a while. And then eventually we'll bring back the bishop to e3 if we need it, like if we want to disrupt a queen on b6 or something.
Yeah, let's try rook b8. Should white play a3 soon? I would say this is not the most important thing we need to do for white. Because white kind of owns the queen side. So if black plays a3 and extends their pawn, like, I think that's just going to give white more weaknesses to work with. Rather
we'll
than
just
black.
win it.
Right.
Not only that, Kosi, I've been thinking that we might want to play knight b1 to a3 at some point.
Yeah, we also kind of lose. Yeah.
Because we need to pressure the b5 pawn and we need to play on the c file as well. We're not going to be able to win for sure just off of one of those two elements. So here I'd probably play like rook ac1 and you know, go for knight b1 pretty soon, actually.
Right. Okay, so this is where the queen d2 bishop g5 construction becomes really annoying, right? Because black has a hard time getting f5 in.
Yep. That's why I'm waiting on bishop e3 or queen e2.
See, this is the problem when your opponent knows your ideas. Then they wait.
Yeah, I asked you what the idea was. You told me, and I'm
Unbelievable.
incorporating it now.
Actually, even here as black, I'm like already thinking about playing like h6 as a way to try to break free or change the character of the position to Danya it.
Okay. You're just sacking it to play knight h5 and change the game?
Basically, yeah, I'll just show the idea. White doesn't have to take, but if they do take this pawn, we'll go knight h5, and then maybe we get knight f4 in. If white brings the queen back, let's say trying to be cautious, then black goes like king g7, rook h8, and then it feels like black at least, you know, has moves to make, right? Even if it's not officially enough.
Yeah, I 100% approve. That, I think Danya would approve. That's a good Danyaing it.
Thanks.
That is like perfect. And also it's like sort of unexpected. And that's one of the things why like when like Danya comes up with things like this that are fairly unexpected by white, so it's also kind of jarring because it's not a position you were thinking about. It takes you a moment to like adjust and like figure out how you want to handle it. Because you're kind of sitting like, I've got a queen on d2 instead of on e2 because I'm preventing black from playing h6 for now. Then black plays h6 and you're like, oh, I never actually calculated the move. I just figured it wasn't possible. That's a great idea, Kostya.
Thanks, yeah. Well, all good
ideas. If Danya
ideas.
were your teacher, I'm sure he would give you like a star right here and now.
That sounds great. To be fair, I've definitely seen the idea before, honestly, from a couple sources. There's a very famous Ilyas Mirin game as black where he plays h6, where he sacrifices the h6 pawn in a similar way. I've also seen Aronian, who doesn't play the King's Indian that often, played a couple times in Blitz like this idea where his opponent had a bishop on e3, queen on d2, hitting his h6 pawn, and then he just goes f5. White takes the pawn on h6, then he just goes f4, just shutting it down, trading dark squared bishops, and then getting in using the open h file. And
Right.
I checked some of his games like with the engine, like it wasn't good, but he won most of his games. So
it sounds like actually good too. I mean, I'm surprised it's so bad. First of all, an h pawn is less than a pawn.
yeah.
And then second of all, you're making clear positional gains with f5, f4. Next of all, you're trading that bad piece. Next of all, it's the side of the board you're attacking on. So like an open file is always some compensation for a pawn. And then this was already like, I think rook pawns are like 0.6 of a pawn or so. So, I mean, it all sounds very plausible.
No, I think it's really good kind of like practical sacrifice where you just kind of get more fun in the position. And then it comes with the additional benefit of your opponent will not always accept your material. So if black goes, we were thinking here, right, h6. What do we want? King, was it king h1? Yeah, king h1, h6. If white might just get scared and not take the pawn. And in that case, black gets to make progress for free, because if the bishop pulls back, then the knight can move, black can go f5, or if bishop goes to h4, then maybe black has some g5 ideas one day, but it can also play queen e8 and knight h7, and now this square is available, and then again f5. So black solves some problems if white kind of backs down. All right, well, we'll let Bubba think about it. Let's see, in the meantime, we can actually switch back to Cartier's game. This is updates.
Oh yeah, it completely changed. Oh, white went for something very complicated. Bishop h3. I mean, I'm really impressed. He knew when it was like time for desperate measures.
Yeah.
I strongly approve.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, we were thinking after knight d5, black's position looks good. And it probably is. So that means that, okay, either white goes down and just loses quietly, or you go down with a fight.
Wow, I am really, really impressed by people's here's ability to like fight. Yeah. I don't like that move rook e8 from black.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, white made this not at all easy. Not at all easy. I think... Oof. Huh, not at all easy. I'm not sure what black's supposed to do there, but I don't like rook e8.
Well, let's take the live position. It feels like black has to go knight a4. Oh, is the idea rook c4? Is that the problem?
Yeah. I mean, then there's like knight b2. No, it's all with check.
It's all with check, yeah. So white sort of needs to just win the rook for 2 pieces back, and then we'll just be up a pawn and not worse at all. Far from it. So this is actually very critical for black.
Mm-hmm. Black could go knight b5 to get their pawn back, right? Let white take twice on c7, then play knight c7.
Yeah.
But the bishop would be a better piece than the knight in that final position, so it's not clear who's better, but at least you're not down a pawn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it's pretty unclear actually, because black has the better structure, but the bishop is clearly better than the knight in this position, especially with a nice anchor on e3. And white can go like h4, h5, or f4, f5, and create some passed pawns quickly. So that's an option. I'm thinking, can we do anything like king b8, and then rook c3, bishop? Anyway, white can take on c5 first and take on c3.
Yeah, but even if he just plays rook c3, bishop b4, king d2, there's just no way to take advantage of it. Rook c8, bishop d4.
Rook c8, bishop d4, and knight b6, king just moves, yeah? King d3, yeah, okay. Wow, nice job, Cartier, huh? And knight a4 on the board, so we'll see if rook c4 will follow. Maybe rook c4, can black go knight e5?
Rook takes e5.
Play rook e5.
Rook a4.
And then pretty drawish rook in game, most likely.
Yep. Yeah. I would call that a draw. It's just one option.
So yeah, nice job white fighting back. So from black's point of view, maybe should have done something to stop this. Maybe didn't think it was a huge threat, but although I do feel like it should have been good for black, but now I'm with you. Rook e8 seems like it was too slow.
One of our games has been decided.
Oh, Joel has won. That's Jesse's student. Looks like his opponent might have blundered.
So, in that position we had before, white didn't play bishop takes knight on f6, which would win a pawn, right?
Oh, he took on d5 first, which allows knight takes d5. Yeah, I'm gonna call that a miss from both players.
Yeah, an a3 f6, which is a bit of a yikes as well.
Bishop f7 and then bishop takes d5. Yep, that was it.
Not really any good moves available for black after f6, right?
Yeah, I mean, right. I think if he could play bishop f7 safely, then I kind of get what he's doing. But honestly, I'm not sure if it was the right thing to do in the structure, because e6 pawn is just going to be weak for the whole game now.
Yeah.
Yeah, my feeling is that black just played this one a little bit too quickly. I think Shach is a really good player, but I think he just plays too quick. and so that leads him to make like these kinds of blunders, which is unfortunate. Because strategically, I think the moves all make sense for the most part. It's just if you play too fast, you're gonna miss details.
Right. Ryobi Kayet was saying in the game chat there, tight game until f6 seemed too weakening, even if I didn't have the bishop takes d5 tactic. And I agree. Basically, my take on playing f6 would be like you play it if there's an outpost on e5 that you simply can't tolerate. You don't play it if like the piece on e5 is bothering you a little bit or you think it's like pretty well placed. Like if it's really, really messing with you and you're like, I cannot tolerate it, I can't live like this, then you play f6.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never want to like hang a piece with over an hour on your clock.
Okay, unfortunate.
Time thing.
Let's see. Okay, well, Affinity Waffle Truck took our advice, started spending their time playing like a person who's been given like a second chance at life, you know, now this time they're gonna take it seriously, not mess up, and spend their time, be grateful for their position, and let's just go to the live endgame because there's been a bunch of moves here after King E6. What do you think is the evaluation here? What do you think's happening?
I think white can draw. By playing rook takes the bishop on c6 to get behind the passed pawn black's going to have on c3.
So takes, but then where does the king go?
Where did you put the black king? F5 like him?
Oh, yeah, king f5, yeah, right.
I was expecting. All right, so then rook c6, pawn takes knight. And now the problem is king d5, rook d8 check, right?
Yeah.
So I think the king has to go to b4.
To b4. But then it feels like white could be in danger of getting cut off.
Yeah, in some danger. But the idea is to play rook c3 holding the g-pawn and fight our way back. Well, there's not really any choice. He played the move quickly, and I agree. It's the only plausible move.
Oh, king b4 on the board. Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it does feel like black has chances, but yeah, this just always gets me. It's like, okay, you found an idea with rook b8, rook g8, but now white brings the king to e1, and if he knows the Philidor position, he can hold a draw. Maybe he doesn't. We'll see. But I think black at least should just spend time, right? Because for example, king e4 could be a try instead of rook b8 check. Let's say white takes on c3. Now we give rook b8 check, probably forcing the king to the a file. And then after rook b8 check king a3, for example, black can try like rook f8 to f3 or rook d8 to d3. Both moves pose problems for white. And I mean, you could see how this e-pawn could still win the game.
Yeah, I can.
Or even king d4 actually, and just pushing the pawn right away. No, 100%. This could be really strong for black. I mean, when king is cut off, this is a problem. So I think might have been a missed opportunity there, but hopefully instructive for everyone else. And
on king e4.
Oh man, there was a lot of mistakes.
Play the finesse rook c4 check.
Oh, in that line?
Instead of playing rook c3, walking into rook b8 check.
That's true. That's a good finesse.
Yeah.
Here, actually, king c3 is also possible again.
Yeah.
And heading to this position, which definitely is drawn. But a little bit of uncertainty from white because in the game on rook g8 he played king c4.
Went in the wrong direction. I think he might still lose it. He's definitely playing it too fast, given that he doesn't know this position.
Well, I think this was already losing after rook c8, king e4, rook e8. I think when the king gets cut off along the rank, it's really dangerous. But then black, okay, cuts him off again.
I only know that it's lost for sure once you're cut off along a rank that the pawn has reached.
Or if the pawn hasn't reached that rank.
If you still have 2 ranks to like fight before the pawn gets there, I'm not sure that you've lost yet. But definitely king c4.
It's true.
It's like 100% the wrong direction, and white is now eventually losing this game.
So yeah, this is the kind of game that just makes me think like we need to be doing many more endgame videos on YouTube.
That's all I do.
But we gotta teach people. It's not enough they watch your like when they watch your stream. It's like, okay, they get this like appreciation for the end game and they learn some positions, but we gotta be teaching people like just position by position. Straight out of Silman's endgame course. Okay, your 500, here's what you need to know. Your 800, here's what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Step by step. Now black, I think, is very close.
Oh yeah.
But white definitely hasn't defended in the most stubborn way to make it challenging for black. We'll see. White can still make things very tricky. I like rook d8. That's a good start. It's showing like he's going to be fighting against the king coming out. And now it's up to black to build a bridge.
I have won rook and pawn against rook from both sides in tournament games.
Well, 95 ratio. John asks, he's under 2,000. But still hasn't needed to know rook and pawn / king and pawn in games. And when will they start? But John, let's clarify. I mean, are you saying you can't, like, you don't know the basic like king and pawn versus king? Like, I feel like you probably know the basic ones, right? You got to give me a better idea of like how much or how little you know.
Here the best move is rook c1, by the way, so we're trying to learn some endgames. If the white king had stayed on b1, the best move would be rook c4 to come across and make a bridge there. It was clever of white to stop with the rook on e8, realizing black's not threatening e1 queen and not keep checking the king because the king wanted to come up and make a bridge with rook e5 or rook f5. And here, white is actually preventing black from making a bridge, so black should know that the other way to win this position is rook c1, but he doesn't.
Yeah, or rook f5 I think is good there too, and then sheltering the king to bring, yeah. But yeah, rook c7 shows that black is confused. But this is the thing that just drives me crazy. So you got 40 minutes on your clock, and okay, you don't find the solution in 20 seconds. Just keep thinking.
Rook c7 instead of thinking for another 2 seconds.
And now, I mean,
a
white
move
is
which
also
you obviously know doesn't win. Well, he's really risking threefold repetition. He's playing it so fast, Kostya.
He might be. I mean, white did play king before, so now it's like fresh. But they are moving so quickly that it wouldn't surprise me if he blunders a threefold repetition. Yeah, absolutely. He might win this game just because white like forgets to defend in the most stubborn way. Like for instance, on the previous position, he could have gone rook d7 and won right there, where white's king wouldn't be able to go to c2 and prevent black's king from coming out. So again, I don't mean to like drag these players. Lots of players have issues in the end game, but it's just I think it's a part of the game where like you lose so many half points by not knowing a lot of like basic and fundamental positions and a lot of full points that like for some players it could really be worth it. So John was saying he has to calculate a lot in some of those basic end games. I would say for you, John, that's quite a problem, because if you're already like 2,000, 2,100, 2,200 in like other parts of the game, and then you're giving up a lot to your opponents in the end game, like that's going to lead to a lot of struggles. So I think a great place to start would actually be the Silman Endgame book. We were just talking about this one on Twitter today and in the earlier Coach Chess show, but that lists a lot of the endgames that people need to know up to 2,200. And it doesn't have like everything. I think there are other books that are more comprehensive, but I think it's a great start. So that might be one to check out.
Right. I think his overall question is, should he prioritize studying the end games if they're not coming up that often? So yeah, he doesn't know it, but it also doesn't happen to him that much. Right.
Yeah. I wanted to address this part too. So this to me feels like there's going to be some, I don't know what to call it, like survivor bias or something. It's like in your games, you're not getting a lot of end games. So does that mean that like end games don't, show up that often, or does it mean that you're avoiding endgames? Because that could be the reason, right? Like, it's kind of like a circular, it's like a chicken or the egg thing. It's like, maybe you're not studying the endgames because you're not getting them a lot, or maybe you're not getting them a lot because you're not studying them. And I also know John's repertoire is very aggressive with white, so you're playing like King's Gambit, Smith Mora. You're not going to get a ton of endgames from those openings, but you will get them from time to time.
And a lot of them you'll be down upon, and you'll kind of give up instead of putting your best effort into it, and you might not count it as an endgame. You'll be like, oh, well, I went into the endgame losing.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Not realizing that many of these endgames against other 1900 players, they'll blow it if you put up really tough defense.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think like the players in this game, their average rating is 1600. I think that's about when I learned Lucena, which is what they're sort of struggling around with. But I think most of all, I would have used my time better. You know, like even if I didn't know the Lucena cold, I think that I was very like serious about getting the most out of every game and position I had. So I never left like an hour on the table, so to speak, unless I was, you know, winning the game. But if I was losing or drawing, I would just spend everything I had trying to fight that fate.
That makes sense. So another thing, John, is that like you will face opponents that are so afraid or worried about getting attacked and checkmated that they'll willingly go into a bad endgame just to escape that fate. And then if you don't feel confident in your skills, then you won't feel like you can go into those good endgames and try to like convert them. Whereas that is a very important part of the skill set. When you're any kind of player, you need to be able to convert like big advantages.
Yeah. I remember a game I played. I was in the master section already. I must have been like 2300 or something. I was playing with other 2300s, and I'd upset like an IM or something, and I had like a chance at first place in a little like weekend Swiss, you know, where like the top players were like 2400-ish. And I played some like great idea in an open Sicilian, and my opponent like sank into deep thought and like looked far enough ahead to realize they were in like big trouble, and then basically just offered to like lose a pawn and a slightly bad position to go into an endgame. Or alternatively, I could not take them up on that offer, but it would like diffuse like everything I was doing, right? I would have to just back down and just keep playing just a random position, right? And I didn't take it. Like I knew I was unlikely to win that endgame against that player. Even now, like I wouldn't expect to beat a GM in that endgame, but I would expect like other GMs could win that position for sure. I mean, it was dominating. It's only my lack of skill that makes it not a sure thing to go for it. And then I realized, like, and as I was sitting there in that game making that decision, I was like, I really like am up against a problem here. You know, like if I were playing against myself, like I would do this like every game, right? Just offer the guy like, oh, you want to attack me here? Why don't you just like capture this pawn that I randomly block you with that isn't defended enough times but requires some piece trades to take.
Right. So you felt like that was a big like leak in your game.
Yeah, I mean, like immense. I was like, you know, this is like a dramatic obstacle. You know, like this guy did it out of desperation this game, but like, you know, somebody who really knows me could do this on purpose every game, even not from a bad position.
Right. Hey, Affinity, good to see you. Actually, yeah, we are happy to discuss the games afterwards. So I'm glad you're in the chat. I would say we can talk about the game. I would say our main critique for you was just the time usage, you know, because like the game started, you got 45 minutes on your clock, and it ended, and you have an hour and 18. So if you want to play better, you got to start with spending more time. I mean, it's just because like you're not going to be able to come up with good moves without giving yourself a chance to actually look for them in the first place. We agree with what you said. The queen takes b pawn here, definitely very risky move. Oh, usually play 3-0. Okay, I was kind of guessing that. There's a lot of players when they join the ladder, they have a hard time not playing quickly.
It's a dramatic adjustment.
Yeah.
And nobody makes those adjustments easily. For everyone, it takes time to make adjustments on time controls. We talked about that at the beginning too. So
Right.
Totally agreed. But I mean, one thing I can tell you concretely for that endgame is that when you got down to rook and pawn against rook, you know, like right when your opponent was going to play rook takes g3, you had a moment where you moved your king up from c3 to c4. And to defend this endgame, your king should make a beeline for e1. So that is move 59 to 60 of the game.
Yeah, I'm showing it on stream.
This rule not only applies to king and rook endgames, it applies to almost every kind of endgame, right, Kostya? Like that you would want your king to try and get to the queening square of your opponent's pawn.
Definitely, the king wants to fight against the opponent's pawns, often like being in front of the pawn, right?
If you had king, knight, and pawn against king and knight, you would want your king there. If you've got king, bishop, and pawn against king and bishop, you'd want your king there. In queen endgames, often you can't get there.
But you would want it here.
For the king would be in front of the pawn. Yeah. Because then on any checks, if they block with the queen, you can trade queens and draw the king and pawn ending. So any simple endgame with just one pawn, I think it's basically for sure you want your king on the queening square. And then if you add more pieces on the board, there will eventually be exceptions. But in general, if your opponent has one passed pawn on the board, you want your king to be near its queening square.
Yeah. We should note, though, that this is not something that is, like, easy to figure out over the board. I think a lot of players make the mistake of, like, you know, they mess up in these endgames that they haven't studied before, and they kind of feel bad about, like, they're supposed to know this stuff or something. But it's like, if you've never studied it, it's going to be very difficult to figure it out. Even if you do spend, like, a lot of time during the game, it's just very hard, right? It's like reinventing the wheel almost, figuring out these, like, chess truths. I would encourage you guys to study some of these basic endgames if you haven't before, specifically playing king and pawn versus king, understanding like what's the best way to defend against the extra pawn, and then what's the best way to try and promote the pawn, like getting your king in front of the pawn, getting the opposition, and this kind of thing. If you don't feel comfortable playing this endgame, it'll be very hard to play lots of endgames, because a lot of endgames end up kind of breaking down and simplifying. And so once you understand the basic king and pawn endgames, then you can kind of like build on top of that. You can learn this position, and then you'll understand in which situations the side that's defending can trade rooks or not. And then from there you can kind of expand your knowledge and build up a lot of foundational knowledge for the endgame. So it's not something that you guys are just supposed to like. It's not just like, oh, if you're a smart person, you can just figure it out over the board. Like, it doesn't work like that at all. It's like either you kind of know the ideas and familiar with them and you've practiced them, or you haven't, and then it's very difficult.
Yeah. So we've got a couple good pieces of advice for you in the chat as well that you're probably seeing and reading. Kinched Mind said, set up an actual board instead of playing on the screen. That'll slow you down, just having to input the moves onto your board, look at the board, pick your move, play it on the board, then go to your computer and enter it with your mouse or your touchpad or whatever.
Yeah, actually, there's a few players in the dojo that specifically play on their phone, because when you play on your phone, you're not going to want to just stare at your phone for 2 hours. And so the point is to, make the moves on a physical board. Yeah.
And then Kush with the advice, which Kostya also had tweeted out last week to someone else, is to sit on your hands. Those are both good pieces of advice, but what I'd like to do, Finity, is I'd like to acknowledge what you've accomplished today. I mean, you came out here, you played a time control you're not used to, you got involved in the ladder for the first time, you put your game up on like the screen for everybody to like watch, and that's like a huge step in the direction of being able to continually improve, right? I mean, you took a huge step. You fought a long game, 60 plus moves down to the last pawn, and you and your opponent each like fought like crazy. So in my opinion, it's a huge accomplishment today, and that's what I would focus on even beyond these little pieces of advice that we're giving you.
Yeah, the game itself is a win. I totally agree. And I think that's the secret to the growth mindset. It's like the fact that you showed up and did something that's your win. You don't base it off the results, you just base it off of your effort. Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm checking back in with Chaxis.
Yeah. Hit me with something. Chaxis.
And Rook E1, Black did castle.
Mm-hmm.
Knight D2 played. Mm-hmm. Queen C7. Yep. Another way of playing the position. C3. Encouraging Black to take. He did.
Right, and I don't like C3, as you know, but that's sort of a master level, not a 1600 level.
Yeah, simply because you think White might have had other moves here to play.
I mean, it's very risky to weaken the D3 square, to move any pawns. Like, ideally, what White would like to do is set up the pawn structure with B2, B3, and C2, C4. Nullify pressure on the B and C files, and then develop your pieces. But realistically, you don't get to. So that's why I came up with Knight D2 to B3 as a plan. And, it's just a very tough position for White. You see in the game, I mean, they're using appropriately some time to think about their moves, but we see that the knight is still on D2, the bishop's still on C1. You can't play bishop B2 because of rook D2. There's still awkwardness.
Yeah, definitely it seems like Black still has very decent compensation here. On C4, there'll be bishop D4 or bishop B4, even more annoying.
Right. So it's not going to be easy for White.
Yeah. Dave, I'm going to take a quick bathroom break.
All right. I'll cover it for a second.
Cool. I'll be around.
All right. So it's Black's move, but from Black's perspective, I think you want to take the prophylaxis approach, if that's a mouthful of sounds for you. Prophylaxis is basically thinking about what your opponent wants to do and thinking of how to prevent it. So it's also a preventative way of thinking, right? Yes. Anyway, so Black wants to take the approach of thinking, what does White want to do? And then we can look at Infernal Kush's idea that White might want to play knight c4 to e3. And we can think, how do we position ourselves so as White tries to do that, we can still get something out of the game? I think against knight c4, Black could have the idea of pushing e4 and then playing rook d3. That gets into a weak spot, takes some squares away from White's queen, maybe wins back the pawn on c3. That looks very nice for Black to me. So as Black, I don't even really need to prepare for knight c4. I'm not worried about it. Maybe a little more worried that White might play knight to e4 to just sort of trade that knight and then follow up with bishop e3. So, yeah, weakening d3 is definitely a major thing biting at White here. So then we think, okay, like basically White needs to move the knight. So we look at knight c4, knight f1, knight e4. I think knight f1 again, Black's going to have something with e4 and then rook d3 that'll be reasonable for Black. So let's maybe look at knight e4 for White and see how it would play out, and then try and pick a move for Black that makes knight e4 less strong, right? So we're going to play an extra move for White here and then come back around. So knight e4, queen e4. And I don't really have a great move for Black right now, and White's planning bishop e3. I'm not happy about that, okay? So let's do something to deal with knight e4 being so strong. We could play queen b6 to try and keep the white queen from going to e4. Let's see if that changes things, okay? Queen b6, knight e4, knight takes e4. All right, queen can't take on e4 because of bishop f2 winning the rook. Rook e4, bishop f2 check anyway. Queen f2, rook d1, and mate. So queen b6, knight e4 is out. But queen b6 walks into knight c4 with the tempo. Aye. Right? So we go queen b6, knight c4, and then unfortunately our idea is probably refuted. So we give up on queen b6. Let's look at bishop b6 suggested by Kush. Does that deal with knight e4? Bishop b6, knight e4, knight takes e4. If queen e4, queen c3, great. If rook e4, I want to go queen c3, but after queen c3, rook d1, there's rook d1, so I can't. So bishop b6, knight e4, we trade. The rook takes f5. Queen can't take on f5 because of back rank mate, so the rook retreats to like e1. Then e4. We're getting a really good position unless white can take on f5, right? So queen f5. Rook f8. Queen d5 check. King h8. Bishop e3. Doesn't quite work. Queen f5, queen takes c3, bishop to e3, and
Hey, pass pawn, 5 gifted subs. Thanks so much.
oh, that's so nice of you. Thank you.
David, your visualization has always impressed me.
Why?
It's at a high level.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I can't see anything. I just keep track of where they are.
Well, I said your visualization.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem to pan out for black again, even though we tried. Well, we can play bishop takes e3 and the rook can't take. So the f-pawn has to take. Now the second rank is weakened. Now we play rook to d2. We still have a shot. It's not amazing, but I think it might be enough to draw the game, Kostya.
So what were we saying? We're saying on bishop b6 that black has enough?
We don't know. We were just investigating. Bishop b6, knight e4, trading on e4. The rook takes, so the queen keeps c3 covered. Then we play f5.
Right.
Rook e1, e4.
Yeah.
Queen f5, queen c3. Someone just suggested bishop f2 there, but I think they may be counting on king f2, rook f8, but white would play queen f2.
Yeah.
I don't think it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
sweet. So back to queen f5. I'm playing queen c3 there. And then I was playing bishop e3 for white because, you know, their back rank and their stuff's attacked. Then I'm taking on e3 with the bishop for black. And the rook can't take because of a1, so the f-pawn takes. And now I've weakened the second rank for white, and I play rook d2. And, you know, I have an idea of maybe playing, like, rook f8 to f2 at some point or whatever. And if white plays queen takes e4 here, I'll probably play rook takes a2. And I should be holding the balance for black.
But Dave, let me ask you something here. If you're calculating this in a game,
Yeah.
would you at some point consider something other than e4?
For black, would I look at other moves?
Yeah, because for me it feels
Yeah.
like this e4 line, like I just get the feeling like black is just playing for a very like thin equality, like just enough counterplay.
Yes.
Like our pawns are kind of scattered, but like
Yep.
e4 definitely doesn't feel forced. Feels like we have a lot of moves here.
No, e4 is just the most forcing move. Like I can calculate that variation in like 10 seconds, and then
Yeah.
it gives me a baseline. And if it's, you know, and then I've got a sense, and then I can go back and look at other moves like g6 or f4 or whatever.
So yeah, I was wondering at what point do you go back?
Around the time I get to rook takes a2. That tells me that the position is drawable, but unlikely to win.
Oh, I see. So for me, my moment was like on bishop e3. I was done. I was like, yeah, I don't think we should go any further.
Yeah. I did pause for a second there, like, oh shoot, bishop e3, this didn't work. But then I realized that we could take on e3 when the rook couldn't recapture, and it opens the second rank, and then it's good for me to know that I can go to this if I need to. I'm not in great danger of losing that position.
Yeah.
right? It's good to. I mean, it's very important that you open the second rank, then you get enough.
Oh, definitely, yeah. In this line, no, I just thought it was interesting because for me, I'm like, I just I don't like reject the line, but I'm like, yeah, I just have the strong instinct to like let's go back because I also just feel like we could be fighting for more. Like with a move like if we have time for a move like G6 or something where we just get like E4 for free and then like that could just be, you know, huge. But I mean, I don't know. I was just curious. We got a result. Cardi Tank did win against Adande. The trend was in White's favor.
That was quite a comeback.
Yeah. I wouldn't have come back in this game like against my average opponent. I would have just been dead.
Yeah. I mean, Black found that knight b2 move. He took. If this is what happened, Black would have been better off playing knight takes b5 than this position, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And then, the knight was bad. Yeah.
So he ends up kind of hanging it here.
Yeah.
Knight takes f3, but I would say already this position is very difficult, not just because White has like the extra pawn, but just I think the bishop is good, and yeah, knight is really scattered.
Yeah, I mean, the knight couldn't have retreated to e5, it seems, because bishop f4 would have won it. So it had to go to e1, but then not take on f3. I mean, it was...
I mean, no, maybe he could have done, like, knight b4 check instead of knight e1 and then knight d5.
Right, yep. And then, so it'll be knight b4, king b3, knight d5, rook d3.
Yeah.
To keep the bishop versus knight advantage. That is better. You did get your knight back into the game, but it's not on a square defended by a pawn, so you're still struggling for White.
Right. Although it's okay, far from over actually. So definitely, game continues. But yeah, I got to be careful getting our knight stuck behind enemy lines. Now bishop f4, and that was it.
Yeah.
So nice game, Sombrero. Nice job. We were very impressed with your ability to change the character of the position.
Yeah, bishop h3 was the play of the game. The
star move.
Bishop h3, recognizing you were in deep trouble there and changing the way it was going. And Black wasn't able to make a similar adjustment to like, oh shoot, it's not going the way I want.
Right. Nice Sports Center highlight. Paswan says they were studying the art of attack on Chessable.
By the way, well, sorry, you can say that. Let's get back to this game for 1 second, even though it's done.
And apparently Vukovic is saying that the 7th rank is just as important as the back rank in terms of weakness. Yeah, I would say that kind of rings true. The 7th rank can be just as devastating when the heavy pieces infiltrate as the back rank.
Yeah, there's a whole array of like attacking themes based on getting into the 7th rank. Maybe almost more than the back rank. The back rank's like, oops, you got mated.
Yeah, back rank's pretty simple.
Okay, so if you look at this position at move 17, which I think is one of the most instructive moments of the game, it occurred to me that maybe Adande in this position should have played the move f5.
On which move, sorry?
Oh, sorry, 17 bishop h3.
F5, right. Typical move to shut down light square bishop.
That's like how you fight bishops when you've got like knights against the bishop pair, right? You just say like, oh, light squares, no, bam. And like absolutely. My first instinct is to like look at this like something tactical, right? Like, oh, he's threatening knight f7, you know, like I'll fight tactics with tactics, right? I'm gonna play like king c7 or something, or who knows what, bishop f6, knight f7, bishop c3. Like that's my first instinct, right? But the positional move, probably f5, and then White's back in the hell of their pawn structure, right? Yeah,
I think you're having like a Soviet chess reformation.
Okay, late in my life.
Yeah, you're like coming in light, and yeah, chess doesn't have to be hard. You can shut it down, and then pick up the weakness at your leisure. Sombrera's asking where did they go wrong?
Tactically, there's also the move knight c3, Kostya, threatening mate in 1 to go back to my roots.
No, fair enough.
You're like, that's fine, David. Just play f5 and move on.
No, knight c3 I mean, might just be good. I just think, how do I put this? It's like, well, a consistent strategy I think is better in some areas of stuff than treating every situation differently and trying to be like 100% objective. Like you can often go further with like a consistent strategy. So it's kind of, I guess, the point where like, yeah, if you're playing based on the structure and your opponent does something and you can keep the structure, yeah, you're probably scoring pretty well in this situation. So you don't have to worry more. And there might be extraneous factors too. Like, you know, if you calculate on every move, then you get tired and later on you have less energy for the end game. Whereas if you just keep your advantage, you know, it might be better off. It's hard to say.
Depending on whether you find calculation tiring or like briskly refreshing.
Right. So you're a calculation extrovert. Yeah. Sombrero, I'm not a huge expert on this opening. I do feel like a lot of times in this position, after bishop g4, white goes bishop e3 and only then threatens to take on c5. I don't know if I see a lot of players taking on c5 this early. I could be wrong, but it is a tough position to play.
Fine doing what they did. I think Vish Chess said that normally white would put the king on c2 and it would be comfortable there. I'm also used to that. I think concretely something that went wrong for white was having to play g takes f3. I think that really hurts the scope of white's, I don't know, everything of white's game. The bishop pair scope, because the pawns, when you've got doubled pawns, they block your bishop's diagonals. It hurts your ability to like win or convert endgames because your structure is saddled. Yeah, DC is not bad here. I've struggled with the black side of this position, but I wonder if maybe like king c2 or bishop e2 would have been better than king to e1.
Yeah, that seems like the starting point, I would say, of the investigation. King e1 definitely feels like, I'll take everyone's word for it that this is playable. But yeah, king c2 definitely feels more natural.
And if we look at move 12, where knight c4 gets played, and that's black's first chance to trade on f3, and then, I mean, black played bishop e7 first. They could have equally well traded on f3 and then played bishop e7.
I mean, also could have happened like earlier, like move 7.
It could have?
Well, black could have taken on f3, yeah, much earlier.
Oh, right at the very beginning, yeah.
But this must be theoretical position after DC, queen d1, king d1.
Yeah, that's still theory there.
So maybe there's a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I want to get back to Bubba's game.
Okay.
Because this is exploding.
Whoa!
And let's see what happened here. Just gonna go back a few moves.
I love it.
So knight c3, bishop d7, bishop e3. Okay, understandable move, but not following our principle of like keeping the bishop on g5 to be restrictive.
Right.
Rook b8 played, queen e2, queen e8. Okay, all is logical. And now g4. G4 is really controversial here with white's king on g1.
I love it. These players are well matched. It is just fun to see this game.
I think they are very close level. I think they're both like master level basically. King h8 though, definitely very thematic. So I like this move. Even if it's not great, it's just like an ode to the classics. King h8, knight g8. Smiran's a big fan of this one.
The classics. Knight g8. I guess Steinitz even played moves like that, yeah.
Yeah. King h1, f5. It's just a very logical battle. You just like to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Takes.
Love to see it. Like does not properly express my affection for good chess. Love to see it.
Yeah, actually, this is Aronian's favorite plan. King h8, knight g8, right? In any position.
I think it's time for white to take on e5.
So f4 played, and now knight h6. So f4 is not thematic, I would say. That's not usually a move white is playing successfully in the King's Indian. Because usually black is the one that kind of owns the king side, has like easier chance to fight. But this situation, I don't know. I think it's very concrete, and I don't really, I'm not sure. But I mean, to me, f4 does look reasonable here with white kind of having all of his pieces ready in case the position opens up with like rook c1 and rook g1. So
yeah, white has not made enough progress on the queen side to want to let black play f4 and just smush him on the king side. So I totally agree with gf and f4 as white's approach here. Jesse's done this to me on the white side of a King's Indian once, I think.
Yeah, it's annoying when they fight back on the king side. So, come on, man. I thought we had a deal.
Vishnu again is showing his deep understanding of Bubba's soul. He knows that Bubba's uncomfortable here.
Predicting a win for black. Wow.
FE5 seems good. Agreed, Infernal.
So what is happening? So FE5.
Yeah. The point is you want to do it when black can't take back with the bishop.
Yeah.
Because of the knight on h6. Also, if you don't do something right now, knight g4 is going to be awkward for white. You know, we can't reorganize with rook g1 to try and bring more rooks to this side of the board because rook g1, fe4, and then we'll lose the pawn on f4. It's got to be fe5.
So
and
fe5, and if knight g4, white just has e6, right?
Probably. I didn't even look, but yeah, that looks good.
Otherwise, knight g4 could be pretty annoying.
Yeah, I suppose so.
But e6 is a huge threat. So yeah, I think fe5 is the place to start. I don't think we can take with the bishop. Let's try the queen. Let's be active.
You could do the queen or the pawn. If the queen takes, the plan is bishop f4 from white, I think.
Bishop f4.
Yeah.
Let's go queen f6.
Okay. And then knight takes b5.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fe5 played. Nice.
Yeah.
Let's say I go fe4.
Queen e4. Oui, ça va? Non, je suis encore mon programme dessus. Oui, c'est très lent. Désolé. Ok. Si tu veux le faire en silence, tu peux.
I think I'll probably go bishop f5 here. What do you guys think? I play bishop f5.
You've played bishop f5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or in our analysis. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. I play like queen e2, right? I sort of have to.
Queen e2, yeah. Well, yeah, still on black to kind of show something here, I think. D6 is hanging.
Mm-hmm.
And so is the f-file. So queen e5 on the board. Now bishop f4 very tempting just to hit the d6 pawn.
Yeah, I'd expected queen e7, not queen f6.
Queen e7 makes sense too, yeah.
Not that I'd looked at much, but then I was probably just going to play ef5 from white. Sort of looking at maybe like queen trading, and then I don't know, I guess black can take back on f5 with the knight and defend d6, so maybe I'm not accomplishing anything. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be. We take, knight takes. Knight f5 or maybe bishop f5 and yeah,
Maybe I
black
should
is
take
kicking.
on. What's that?
Black is kicking here.
Black is kicking. Maybe we should take on e2 with the knight. I don't know which piece you took with.
Oh yeah, I took with knight.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
So then after knight f5, maybe white can play rook c7 and maybe like still fight for an edge, but black's in the game, right? For sure.
Feels like, yeah, it feels like white always has enough weakness around the king that black has some annoying chances for counterplay, even if it means like putting the bishop on b7 or f7, just hitting d5 pawn or like some knight e3, trying to get the rooks in. Now here at some point black does think about playing a3, by the way. Shout out to a3, and might try to use the a2 pawn one day.
Yeah. Okay, so let me try another thing for white. Let's say after bishop f4, queen e7, what if white tries to take on b5 there with, let's say, I don't know if it should be the bishop or knight, so I'm thinking a second, sorry. With the bishop. Let's do it with the bishop.
Sure. Can we take on c3 there for black?
You can. I'm going to have to take on d7. Or,
Oh, like that, right?
I mean, I might be missing everything, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Fair enough. Oh, I don't know.
I feel like if I can bring my bishop around to e6, it's going to usefully control a lot of what black's trying to do to me, but I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, bishop f4 on the board. We're guessing a lot of moves. Now there's queen e7. There's also queen d4, but bishop d6 I actually haven't really come up with something here yet, so not sure if this is playable.
Yeah, I would guess that's pretty awkward for black. Bishop d6.
Now bishop f4 on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, queen e7 still looks like maybe the move. So queen e7, we were thinking bishop takes b5.
Okay, it's played. And bishop takes b5 is not my only idea here, right? I mean, obviously we looked at pawn takes f5 first.
Yeah.
There's also the idea of like queen d2, knight to g4, rook c to e1. But, you know, the black queen's probably happy enough to go to h4, even though we've got bishop g3. I mean, I don't know if it's sound for black, but I would even prefer to take on b5 here if I could, I think. Just go straight for d6 and not bring that black knight to g4.
Yeah, it's a really complicated position. I feel like both kings are kind of open. But black has bishop on g7, which defends the king, but also, like, the bishop has to stay on g7 because knight on h6 is, like, constant target.
Right.
White's king also feels open, but so far I haven't been able to, like, really get there for black. So it makes me feel like white is probably better here.
I like the joke that there aren't a lot of streams out there about tic-tac-toe. So far you haven't been able to touch bishop b5. How about taking a million times, sacking exchange there, and then playing queen e4 check? That'll ring white's bell.
Well, that's true. We had this the whole time?
Yeah.
Hey, Vishnu, thanks for subscribing. Wait, but this looks crushing.
Yeah, it's over.
Oh. So we can't take on b5.
Nope. Hey, we've got more than 90 subs, Kosti. I think that's the most we've ever had.
Yeah, it's right at our peak. I don't think we've ever touched 100, but we've been close. By the way, Sunday Night Fights is also weekly time or segment where I tell Jesse all the happenings of the dojo. I guess I'll tell you.
All right.
So let's see.
What's our average viewership now, Kostya?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't even look at it.
That's 116.
Wow,
Right.
that's great.
Yeah. What else do you want to tell me about?
Well, we just started the ladder tournament. I guess it's also for people to know what we're doing. So if you want to play any classical time control games, you just need to go to the ladder channel, follow the link to the Google form, input your info, and you can challenge other opponents. You can basically play as many or as little games as you want. The ladder is mainly for like training purposes, like finding training games that for people who want to play long time controls, but you also get to keep your score over the entire season, which is going to be 2 months, track your performance rating, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. So we got that. I'm also going to be starting a new round robin series pretty soon. We're like starting to form some groups already, and we'll probably put out a sign up for that. And the newest thing, I think we talked about this yesterday probably, is the ChessDojo team. So we've got a team of players that is going to be playing every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time. They're not obligated to play, but they have the option to play either some kind of club match where we'll play against another stream or chess club, or it could be like an internal tournament. Like yesterday we ran a blitz tournament. Next time we'll probably do a rapid tournament. And that's open for subs and anyone who subscribes to us on Patreon. You're welcome to join the team, and then you get to play every week basically and practice your skills. Let's see. Between Two Senseis was great, our earlier stream. That was a lot of fun. Can't wait to put that one up on YouTube.
Yeah. And get one comment on all that controversy.
Yeah.
All right, so bishop b5 is out here. So we finally got at the white king like you wanted to. So let's try for white. Uh-oh.
Knight b5.
Uh-oh, too late. Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Les blancs ont pris un pion ici. Et les noirs peuvent sacrifier sur b5 s'ils prennent 2 fois.
Vishnu's prediction might come
Prendre
true.
le pion sur e4 qui sera plus défendu parce que ces 2 pièces-là auront aller là. Tu vois? Regarde. On sacrifie la tour juste pour amener la dame sur la dame là. Puis
Bishop d4 check.
Échec sur le roi. Roi ici. Le fou arrive aussi. Et puis c'est fini. Le roi n'a plus de sortie, hein, tu vois. Ouais. Celui-là? Ah oui, t'as raison. Il y a une façon d'échapper à échec et mat, c'est de bloquer avec la tour ici, t'as raison. Comment gagner alors?
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Peut-être ici. Oui, tu as aidé, c'est un bon coup ça. C'est la seule façon d'échapper au échec et mat pour les blancs. Mais quand même, les noirs peuvent prendre ici et puis commencer à juste manger tout, hein. Comme un gourmand. Ouais. Tu veux lui manger? Elle? Oui, mais malheureusement, il peut pas aller 2 cases, tu vois, juste une case.
On J.
Okay. Celle-là.
Correct word is capture.
Ouais, t'as trouvé un bon coup là. Il y avait qu'une façon d'échapper au échec et mat là. Ouais. Oh là là, ChessDojo account has taken on b5 once. Very promising that they might take twice.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. And some Vishnu predictions may come true here as well, right?
Yeah. No, he called it. Unfortunate. So what should White have done there? I mean, I guess it's not that easy then if they can't take on b5.
What? Sorry, what's that, Kostya?
What should White have done there? Because then it's not so easy if they can't take on b5.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you can't take on b5, it's not that easy. White should be okay here, though. I mean, the pawn takes pawn line couldn't have been bad for white, right?
Yeah, white's not worse there.
Pawn takes f5, queen e2, knight e2, and then maybe rook coming to c7 or something is pretty good, right? But another line for white would be queen d2, probably, on move 25.
Yeah.
And then I imagine black plays knight g4, but I suppose they could also take on e4 first, like fe4.
Yeah.
A little risky, but I guess playable as well. But, you know, knight g4, rook c to e1 would be my idea there.
Was rook takes b5 even more accurate? Maybe, actually. With rook b5, you force white to take, and then you get bishop b5. And then if white doesn't take on b5, we're just taking on f1 with a extra piece.
But rook b5, white can leave it there just the same as on bishop b5, rook b5. White can leave it there.
Yeah.
It's sort of about the same. I guess with bishop b5 instead first, then after bishop b5, rook b5, if white leaves it there, white also still has to deal with queen e4, trying to trade into a piece up endgame.
It's true.
So, I don't know. I approve of the play of ChessDojo account here.
Yeah, it seems like they're both probably just winning. I think e5, we always take it.
They're probably both winning. They're each capturing a piece. Yeah. Any recourse pour les blancs.
And Bubba has clearly seen what's coming as he's not moving. And yeah, it's like classic, like, oh no. But now it's just over, right? I mean, I think it's cooked. What to do? Well, let's go to Chaxis. Keep an eye on Bubba's game, but that might end like in an instant. Let's see what happened here.
All right, so we were at move 15, b3. These players are really using their time well. I am impressed.
Nice, yeah.
So black just goes for doubling on the d file as compensation for what white's up to.
Mm-hmm.
And now black's thinking.
Yeah, after bishop e3. Well, still, yeah, a little bit something to prove here for black. Although on bishop takes e3, let's see, how's white going to be recapturing here? Maybe queen, and then hitting the e5
Oh, good
pawn.
fine, Kostya. Yeah, bishop e3. If the queen takes, you have rook d3, queen e5.
Takes e5.
Still not black.
Black's going to be pawn down, yeah. Although, let's say we go queen takes e5 there, rook takes e5. And rook takes c3.
Right. Then white plays rook a e1. Black plays like king f8 or g6 or h5, whatever.
Yeah. Let's say g6.
Let's say g6, and then white plays rook a5 and keeps an edge. It's not just dead.
Yeah, I mean, line continues, right? Like black goes to the second rank, but yeah, I mean, only white is playing for the win, most likely.
Right, and also, you know, black hasn't just like gotten a clean draw yet, right?
Oh, far from it. Yeah.
The end game is still to be played. Could go either way.
Yeah. So that's looking nice for white because earlier the positions we saw, I feel like black was getting a good position. We'll mute David's mic for the moment. But was still thinking bishop e3. These players are only on move 18. Other than takes, I'm not sure if I see much else here. I don't know about you guys. Sometimes.
All right. So, has anyone seen anything that's like totally acceptable for black yet?
No, I'm not really seeing a move other than bishop takes e3.
Okay.
All right, Bubba has played bishop takes b5. Well, good on him to at least think in that moment. You know, it's too late, but maybe there was some way to kind of avoid what's going to happen. You never know. Might as well spend a little bit of time to figure it out.
Yeah. I think after rook b5, bishop h6 doesn't change anything. If white takes on b5, they still get finished off by queen e4 and then bishop e3 instead of bishop d4.
Yeah, these diagonals are so dangerous. And there it is. Oh, bishop d6. There it is. The counterplay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Now
find.
queen e4 check would be a blunder.
Yeah, actually. So wait, this is unclear. We missed this. This isn't like really. This is far from over.
Still looks tough, white.
Confusing the audience. The presenters.
I mean, queen d6, queen b5. Now it's some pawns and a rook against two pieces. Black can either take on e4 or throw in the move knight g4 first, which I favor. And then, you know, if knight c2, black probably has knight. If rook c2, black probably has knight e3.
Okay,
So
queen
more
d6.
likely white plays like queen e2 there.
Yeah, knight g4, queen e2. I think we'll see.
And then black can play, I don't know, queen b4 or something. And the game goes on. Maybe queen e5 there. Yeah, that might be better, queen e5.
Mm-hmm. Queen e5 I like.
Or rook e8 might get too complicated. Because if I go for rook f5, rook e4, there's rook c8. Yeah, it's a little too complicated.
I don't know. I feel like white has a lot of pawns. And a lot of open lines. I mean, white's rooks are good.
Yeah, white's got two pawns at the moment. If black takes on e4, then white's down to one pawn. I guess that's the simplest. Just take on e4.
But it's hard to do with the knight on g4.
Right, so just do it.
Oh,
right
just
away.
do it here. Ah.
Yeah.
A long way to trade rooks, but
Yep.
simplifying. And then rook f8, queen f8.
Mm-hmm.
Rook f1.
Yeah, rook f1. Not easy, actually. Anywhere we go, there's like queen b8 or something.
Yeah, I could say in the back rank like queen d8. But
Yep. And then white can play queen takes a4. Getting the connected passers. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
yeah, you generally shouldn't trade rooks when you're down in exchange or when you have two pieces for the rook like this one. 'Cause,
Yeah,
we want the
generally you
rook.
shouldn't do it. Knight g4, queen e2. And it's not simple.
What about a move like rook g8 here?
Going for...
Either like knight g4 or fe4.
I just refuted fe4, rook f8, queen f8, rook f1, knight f5.
Now working for...
Which at first looked very devious. Because like if the white queen moves anywhere, you have knight g3.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And if the king goes to g2, you have knight e3. And if he goes to g1, you have bishop d4. But white has d6. And he doesn't have to go anywhere to attack the knight on f5. Just have to get the d pawn out of the way. Okay, so you want to play rook to g8. Okay, rook g8, pawn takes f5.
Yeah, like knight g4 there.
Queen to e2. Oh, then there's queen b5.
Right.
Knight g4. Huh, interesting. Rook g8. It's a shocking move to me, but I'm starting to see it.
Yeah, just to try. I don't know. It kind of feels uncomfortable for white. All these mating ideas.
This position actually really hard to play.
Yeah, for both sides.
Yep. Yeah, rook g8, rook c6. I was also looking at that, Vish, and it's pretty weird as well.
I guess first that would be queen e5.
Right. Then rook e6, queen d4.
Yeah, you just keep weaseling in.
Or maybe even queen b2,
Or queen
for all
b2,
we care. Who
yeah.
knows? Very weird.
I like queen b2 actually, just taking the second rank.
Yeah. But then we can play pawn takes f5, and on knight g4, queen back to e2, because the rook on e6 is covering it.
True.
Now our queen's not on d5. So, like, I don't know what either side should do.
How about ef5, bishop e5?
Okay. Nice.
It's too bad the bishop was not hanging. I really wish it was. It's such a nice move.
Okay, what if black plays rook take? Oh, yeah, okay. You've got queen g2 mate also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, now that you mention it, rook takes h6 would defend h2. Yeah. What a mess. Vishnu, you think that black will win?
I would still probably take black here. Feels easier.
Black's investing time in this move.
Yeah. Which is good though. I think this is feels like a critical moment.
Yeah.
But hopefully not too much time, because if you run down low, then your opponent makes one move you didn't expect, and all of a sudden you have to start over. Yeah, bishop takes d6 was a good resource. Interesting comment from Les Grossman. Someone once claimed that when neither side has any pawns around their king, the quantity of pawns and size of pieces is almost irrelevant. Quantity of pieces is all that matters. It's interesting.
Somewhat. I would still think like, yeah, I think to some extent that may be the case. I would say it would be like, not almost irrelevant, but maybe matters less. I think you'll still see like a queen outperforming like, you know, a rook or a knight and bishop or a rook and knight.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure lots of cases, especially with like fewer pieces, like queen and rook against bishop and knight. I think I'll take the queen and rook there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are many cases where it's like one bishop or one knight can fight against one rook, and it doesn't feel like you have a material disadvantage because the rook attacks something once and the bishop defends it once. So why is the rook any better?
Yeah. What to play? Fascinating game, living up to its promise.
Yeah, definitely.
So on Sunday night fights, do you guys ever eat like popcorn while you watch or anything?
Yeah,
Like,
we'll snack sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I've had some pastries.
Tempting. That depends less. I mean, often the queen, because of her abilities to check the king, will tie up or, you know, one or two of the rook and two pieces, and then the opponent won't be able to attack your king because they don't have enough pieces to attack that aren't, you know, pinned or defending their own king, and then the pawns continue advancing. But I would agree that, like, you know, those pawns over on the queen side are not going to be of tremendous value.
Yeah, rook and two pieces can be really strong. I think those positions are really tricky to both evaluate and then play accurately.
But in any case, that material balance that you gave also, it's not actually like, not particularly like queen and pawn favored, right? I mean, if you just picked any random position and didn't even give me the factor that both kings are open, and you said, do I want rook and two pieces or queen and three pawns? It's a pretty close call. I'd basically want to see the position before I picked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Queen e7.
Queen e7.
Yeah, just looking at that e4 square. You can't let her in there.
So interesting that it wasn't queen e5.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe eyeing the h4 square or something. I mean, b4 pawn.
And maybe bishop e5.
Maybe bishop e5 too.
And maybe b4, depending on how white defends this. Yeah.
Okay. Well, first thought would be like rook ce1.
Mm-hmm. That's a good looking move. All right, I'd play bishop c3. It's been played. Good call, Kostya. That was a strong move.
Rook e1?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So far, despite Vishnu's misgivings, I would say Bubba is handling himself quite well, given that taking on b5 was a mistake that he hadn't planned on.
right.
He's produced a good series of moves from that unpleasant moment.
Is one of the ChessDojo people playing black this game? No, this is everyone that's playing these games. They're like part of the dojo, and either they're like students or they listen to our streams and have learned from us. But no, I think this is just this player's secret ChessDojo. This is their account that they play ChessDojo games on. But it's gonna be confusing for the audience. Another thing that's confusing is, of course, Bubba's rating, which is gonna draw questions. But no, Bubba is strong. It's just that not everyone plays on chess.com, and especially the different time controls. So people's provisional ratings are like all over the place.
This knight is struggling to thrive.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, it's not going to be much better in the end game, so black does need to go for an attack.
Maybe f4 here. Try to play knight g4, and then knight comes in somewhere e3 or e5. Knight g4 I think was very playable. I think the issue black had, like knight g4 attacks the pawn, but then queen e2, and then this knight is kind of hanging on g4, it's floating, so it's hard for black to take on e4, hard for them to push f4, and then whenever white plays ef5, they're going to be hitting the knight. So I would imagine this is like black just didn't find a good follow-up here and didn't want to do this. But it was probably an okay move, I think.
Yeah. I would say we couldn't tell for sure what move was best. Knight g4 was one of the candidates.
I know what I would do.
Rook g8.
That move looked so good to me. Just like non-forcing, but also making a threat. And just like giving the opponent a chance to blunder. So can we get an update on PogChamps, guys? What's going on? Normally you guys let us know what happens in the big events.
They're busy watching the Sunday night fight.
but a lot of our fans will, when a ChessDojo stream is going on at the same time as like a Magnus Carlsen tournament, they'll watch both and then they'll update us on like, oh, Carlsen's leading or Naka's leading. Like, yeah, I think we were
ears or with two.
I think they probably mute the Chess24 stream. That would be my guess. And they just keep an eye on the games and the score. Oh, Hafu won. Nice. Good. Well, yeah, I mean, they both have similar viewership. Natural comparison, no?
I called this one.
Yeah, bishop c3. Should white consider queen c5? Definitely, I think most queen trades here are going to be good for white. Because they have so many pawns, as long as their king is not in just immediate danger in the end. But the issue is that black will usually be able to avoid it.
Yeah.
Now, rook e2, yeah, definitely looks like my first choice.
Who's is asking my partner's question? How much longer will the stream run?
That's a good question. We usually wrap it up around this time.
Contacted him.
That's funny. I think we can give our predictions on the game and finish it up. It does get warm in my apartment, and yeah.
Wait, you guys literally want to play queen c5 here and let black take on e1?
I don't. I was saying queen c5 in a general sense was fine. Here, I'm not sure if I don't think queen c5 is. It's interesting, but I'm not sure if it's working.
It's not. Black trades queens, takes on e1, takes on e4, and it's a small edge for black.
Well, okay, let's take a look. I always think that it's interesting when there's a difference of. This is one of the most important things with students. Like when they see a position, they think one way and you think another way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it's unclear actually. I wouldn't want black in this position. Well, let's go rook takes c4. How are you gonna win this?
I didn't say I'd win. I said I had a small edge.
Oh, okay. Well, how are you gonna hold this then?
All right, I'll play rook to f2.
Okay, c6.
Rook c2.
Rook a4.
Third pawn, huh? Knight f5. All right, I'm struggling to draw. Knight f5.
Yeah, it's I think it's dangerous. We can go back. I think it's actually a really interesting idea, especially like I mean if it's unclear, if black doesn't have like an easy way, because you could also play on rook takes c4, rook g8 and go for checkmate. But maybe not. Maybe it's not gonna, I can move the h pawn.
You want to go for checkmate with a rook and just a knight?
Well, we had some knight g4, knight f2 ideas, but
Okay.
probably too slow. Almost
Yeah,
for
if you
sure.
play knight g4, white can move the king off of the.
Yeah.
Where it's stuck, right?
Or I like Les's idea, just c6, knight g4 takes, and
Yeah.
get into all the textbooks. Nice. Now, unfortunately for white, I mean, as interesting as queen c5 looks, black can maybe just find a queen move.
Yeah, fe4 is a big mistake. We should just play knight g4 there. Bring the knight into the game. Not bring the white rook to e4 where it can take our a pawn. And if white takes on, f5 or something, then our rook comes to the 5th rank and can collect pawns
Oh,
potentially.
knight g4. Yeah, I agree. This is a much better try.
No. Responding to another suggestion, somebody said rook e2 here maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also the interesting possibility of rook e2 fe4.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, now that...
And now, with the queen not connected to e2,
Yeah.
the white king struggles to control the light squares if white trades on f8.
Yeah, so that would be extremely dangerous. Very, very nice line, actually, because it shows how hard the white queen has a time of getting back to the king side. So rook e3 played for the tempo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did it all for the tempo.
Yeah, very dangerous, that position was.
Here, knight g4 is an interesting move, too.
Yeah, knight g4 is possible.
Oh, no, the rooks can block on f3. Nice, nice, nice. That makes it less interesting.
No, but even then, there's knight e5.
So knight g4, rook c3, queen e5, huh?
Oh, I meant queen takes e4 check.
Oh, queen takes e4, yeah.
And then if a rook goes to, like, rook cf3, then maybe knight e5.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the white queen has no way to get to it?
Yeah, queen is just dominating all these
And
lines.
g2, rook g8 wins.
Yeah. Queen e5, I think white has rook g3 or... But here...
Or c2, yeah.
Here, yeah, black seems to be in business. I don't know, maybe queen c5 tempo. Yeah. Maybe not so clear.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, lines are really, really tricky. So knight g4 takes.
Queen e4.
For...
And we didn't yet say which rook blocks there.
I think c.
Yeah,
At least
that's
that
what I
my
was
choice,
thinking too,
yeah.
but... Rook c. Knight e5, queen c5.
Queen c2 is possible. Yep. Queen c2 is very, very unpleasant. Well, alright guys, I think we're gonna wrap things up.
Man,
It's been a long weekend of streaming,
that's an exciting game.
but it's been great. It's actually been one of my favorite work weekends in a while.
All right.
I enjoyed
I'll
it.
tell Jesse that.
Yeah, I wonder what it is. I don't know why. I just like enjoyed my Sunday more than usual.
I don't know.
Can't-
I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on what might have been better about this weekend.
Yeah. Oh, Infernal Kush. Yeah, maybe Infernal Kush. They were here.
Yeah. I did that too.
All right, guys. Well, we'll be wrapping it up here. Make sure to join our Discord and follow us on Twitter. You can see updates to our schedule and what we're doing. Tomorrow I'll be streaming at 5 p.m. my usual show, Norm Hunter, with National Master Todd Bryant. We'll be catching up with what he's been doing for his training.
Mm-hmm.
David, are you going to be doing your usual training
I'm gonna do my
streams?
normal Monday night tomorrow. Yeah, I think I got tomorrow night. Something in the 8:30 to 11:30 or midnight range. They've been tending to go past midnight this past week for some reason. Oh yeah, that 80 move game by Fisher and Karras
Oh, nice. Well,
kept
cool.
us up late. So yeah, see you guys later. Thanks for everything you're all doing here.
Yeah. I'm going to raid Danya. Looks like he's doing a viewer battle against ChessBra.
All right.
You guys can go check that out. And yeah, we'll catch you guys all later. We didn't mention this last game actually between Chaxis and Herbie. The position hasn't changed much actually. I think Black has kept some compensation for a while. Actually, all three results still very possible. It feels like.
Yeah, very good play. Very high quality play so far there.
And all right, guys. See y'all later. Take care.